Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic.
2 long years had passed since the end of the Unification Wars. 2 years since the lands of the Western continent were united under a single ruler since the time of the Six Paths Sage, thus leading the people into an era of prosperity and peace. The city of Kimin, also known as the imperial capital, located 20 miles inland from the Western Sea, and accessible from the Kimin River, which snaked its way halfway through the northern continent, ending at its namesake. The imperial capital also served as a hub for trade, as did South Ichiyama in the southern region. The nerve center of the unified West was the imperial complex. Think the imperial palace in Japan. Located at the heart of Kumon City, which served as the imperial capital, the 2-mile complex sat on top of a small hill and was heavily fortified, as it once belonged to the late Kimin warlord Rokenbungi Oda. Now, it served as the center of the unified West. Spanning 2 miles, the 4-story imperial palace, which served as the residence of the emperor. The top 2 floors were reserved for the emperor, while the bottom 2 floors were for their guests. Aside from the imperial palace was the Hall of Sovereigns, of which the emperor, the empress and their 16-member imperial council, 8 from the empire's high-ranking samurai and shinobi clans and 8 civilians and nobility who were the elected representatives of the people, met 3 times a week to conduct and manage the government. The House of Sovereigns also contained his throne room, where the royal couple would usually receive their guests, seated on their thrones, as well as their joint office. Speaking of the emperor, he was inside his office, taking on his greatest foe yet. A foe so devious, so cunning, that it almost made him wish that he was fighting his former self, the Akatsuki, the legendary Sanin and Hiruzen Sarutobi at once. A foe so cold and ruthless, that even Orochimaru would be sent screaming in terror from its presence. That foe was paperwork. House of Sovereigns, Office of the Emperor and Empress Consort. Og, I should have known this job had a catch to it. Honestly, I don't see how my old man could have done this. Leading an army into battle was much easier. The Emperor of the Unified West sat behind his desk, going through the mountain of paperwork, grumbling under his breath about how his wife was able to escape from the abomination of paperwork while he was stuck with it, and of the unfairness of it all. 18 years old, he had came a long way since his days as a Konohagakure genin. He was no longer the loudmouthed, orange-loving, ramen-consuming knucklehead who screamed that he would be Hokage one day. The years he had spent in the West had changed him. Forged in the fires of war, trained in the ways of the shinobi and the samurai. Standing at 6 feet tall, with a wiry, muscular frame, the face a spitting image of his father. The whisker-like marks on his face, a sign of him being a Jinchuriki, were gone. His blonde hair had taken on a reddish hue, a sign that he was of Uzumaki blood, the facial stubble on his face also the same color. Blue eyes showed intelligence combined with ruthlessness when needed be. His style of clothing also changed as well. No more did he wore orange, which screamed, "Kill me." Instead, he took to wearing mostly black, since it can go with anything. The emperor dressed simply, as it had reflected on his childhood, a white shirt with a tight collar and the sleeves rolled to his elbows, black vest, pants and boots. His longcoat remained on the hanger, while his black cage-style hat hanged alongside the longcoat. The hat was mostly used to conceal his identity, mostly when he traveled abroad, which was often. The emperor of the unified Western Empire, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, sighed. "Screw this," he muttered. Making a cross with his hands, he channeled his chakra and uttered the words, "Kage Bushin." In a poof of smoke, 5 shadow clones appeared. Naruto rose from his seat and retrieved his longcoat. "Finish up the paperwork. I'm going for a walk." "Yes, boss," the clones acknowledged as they got to work. Longcoat fluttering in the breeze, Naruto walked down the halls of the House of Sovereigns. Servants bowed to him as he passed, to which Naruto responded with a nod of the head. As it was past noon, there was one place where his wife could be, the palace gardens. Rounding the corner, he ran into his senior advisor. A tall, walking mountain of muscle, tanned, with bleach blonde hair and the mustache to match. His Hittite with the imperial insignia, the four symbols seal, was wrapped around one massive bicep. Naruto greeted the older man. Afternoon, the former Raikage of Kumo turned advisor grunted. Chief, how did the Raikage of Kumo ended up in the west, and as Naruto's senior advisor? 1 year earlier, was overthrown by Orochimaru, who had placed a puppet ruler in his place. The first order of the new Raikage: eliminate his predecessor and his brother, Killer B. However, as Emperor of the West, Naruto had a robust spy network in the East, and it was through them that Naruto was notified of the coup while visiting Gaara in Suna. With Hinata at his side and the aid of his elite guard, his personal bodyguards and the use of the demons, Gate Jutsu, Naruto arrived at the nick of time and slaughtered the Kumo Anbu, thus saving A and B's lives, and those of A's loyal supporters. Imagine their shock upon returning to Suna that the Emperor was the former Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Even A and B had heard about the exploits about the one who unified the lands under a single banner. It was then that Naruto offered A and B political asylum within the empire. A and B accepted Naruto's offer, with A serving as senior advisor to the young emperor, while B hung around the trading post of Rara, located 30 miles from Kumon. Dodging your duties once again, Chief? A asked dryly. Duties? Have you seen the mountain of paperwork on my desk? Naruto shot back. A shuddered. Don't remind me. I've had my share of doing paperwork when I was the Raikage. Whoever came up with paperwork needs to be strung up. Naruto chuckled. On that, I agree. I left a couple of shadow clones to finish up. I received word from Fu that several clans from Konohagakure have defected from the village. Is that true? Naruto nodded. Fu, the Jinchuriki for Chome, the seven-tailed beetle, was part of the United West's information network. Anything Konoha-related was sent her way, and in turn, was delivered to either Naruto, his wife, or the Nine Tails herself. 4 clans, plus 90 Junin-level shinobi. They should be arriving within the week. Can you trust the Hyuga and the Ino Shikacho? I can see you have your concerns, Naruto replied. The Ino Shikacho first generation were childhood friends with my father, and unlike my former teammates, their children never saw me as the fox. As for the Hyuga, aside the fact that they hate the Uchiha with a passion, Hinata's mother was close friends with my own mother, and Hiashi saw her as an equal. Despite Sarutobi's efforts in stunting my growth in order to turn me into a weapon, those 4 men looked out for me in their own way, honoring a promise made to them by my parents. I nodded, knowing of Naruto's treatment as the village pariah solely because he held the most powerful of the tailed beasts. Not even B and Yugito were treated as harshly. In his mind, the people of Konoha were total idiots, favoring a traitor over a hero. In the aftermath of the Uchiha retrieval mission, once it became known as to what had happened through Gaara and Suna, public opinion regarding Konoha had plummeted. In the end, despite all of its posturing and its supposed will of fire, Konohagakure no Sato was known as the village who rewards traitors for the fire daimyo, Tsunade and Jiraiya. Their name was synonymous with the words hypocrite and backstabber. And for Sasuke Uchiha, his name was synonymous with traitor. It was through his intelligence network, posing as merchants from the Pakara merchant house, that Naruto had found out that the Konohagakure High Council not only promoted Sasuke to Junin, which he did not deserve, but also activated the CRA. Hiashi Hyuga and Inoichi Yamanaka objected to having their daughters marry the Uchiha. When Tsunade threatened to strip them of clan status and revoke their shinobi registrations, Hiashi and Inoichi retaliated by turning in their Hitai Atesh and storming out of the council chambers. Shikaku and Shuza soon followed, turning in their Hitai Atesh as well, throwing in their lot with the Hyuga and their longtime friend. Unknown to Tsunade and the other pro-Uchiha members of the council, Hiyashi had been in contact with the Imperial spies and had gotten word to Hinata. After talking it over with Naruto, he had agreed to allow the Hyuga and anyone defecting from Konoha political asylum. Those four and their families looked out for me back in Konoha, Naruto continued. Their children did not see me as a demon growing up. And Lord Namikaze always pays back his debts, I concluded. The young emperor nodded. Plus, Konoha's reputation had already taken a serious hit when they banished me and favored the Uchiha. With the loss of four major clans, the village will be crippled even further. You know Konoha won't take this lying down, A said. They already did, Naruto replied. As you probably know, the unified West and yours truly are quite the hot topic in the East. They know of my exploits and of my strength, which is even greater than the legendary Sannin combined. If Konoha attacked the defecting clans who were traveling with the Pakara merchants on the way to the coast, I nodded in understanding. It would set off an international incident, and would make Konoha lose face, attacking an unarmed convoy. Impressive, Chief. Naruto grinned. Thank you. If you need me, I will be at the gardens. I smirked as he nodded knowingly before walking off in the opposite direction. Imperial Complex, Palace Gardens. The Palace Gardens, think Shang Tsung's Palace Gardens without the outworld-related stuff, was the favorite spot of the Empress Consort of the United West. Her husband had built it for her, obtaining various rare flowers from East and West. Located at the back of the complex, Naruto had it done for Hinata as a wedding gift, seeing as how his wife loved flowers. Kimen had several gardens and parks, as well as training grounds for its shinobi and samurai, but this was for the emperor's personal use. Seated under one of the trees, was the Empress Consort of the West. She was reading a romance novel under the shade of the trees, enjoying the spring day. She was the same age as her husband. Her hair, once long during the Unification Wars, was now cut short again, think Samantha Burns' hairstyle from Gears of War 3. She was taller than she was back when they were both Konoha genin, standing at 5 feet 7, several months younger than he was, her pupil-less lavender eyes identifying her as one of the Hyuga. She was dressed in her standard medic nin uniform, which was a black shinobi shozoku, a type of dark-colored training doji for shinobi, with a crimson lotus decal on the left. Underneath the shozoku was a fishnet shirt. A black Junin flak vest completed the outfit. Like her husband, Hinata Hyuga, now Hinata Namikaze had came a long way since Konoha. When the Uchiha was pardoned and Naruto was banished, Hinata was sent along with him by her father in order to keep the Hyuga Council from branding her with the caged bird seal. In the years following her exile, she too had been forged in the fires of war, having become Naruto's second in command. She was also the founder of the medic ninja program used during the war, which was one of the major factors in Naruto winning the Unification Wars. While she ran the program, her second in command was a clansman from Naruto's clan, Karen Uzumaki. The medic ninja program produced top-notch medic ninjas, who were later assigned to various parts of the empire. Karen was also a former Otogakur kunoichi who had defected from Orochimaru because of his inhumane experiments on the sick in his quest for immortality. Aside from being a highly skilled medic, Hinata was also trained in the assassination arts by Yugito Ni, as well as political intrigue by the elderly Sanshi. She was known to the soldiers and to the people as the Lady, and Princess of Foxes, given as she was the third Kitsune Sannin. She continued to read her novel as she felt her husband's presence behind her. She had gotten better at detecting his chakra signature. How is it that you can sneak away from your duties at the hospital, while I have to use shadow clones to get away from the mountain of paperwork left on my desk? Hinata closed her book and looked up at her husband, who was leaning up against a nearby tree. Karen took over for me at the hospital, Hinata replied, rising to her feet. Unlike the wives of the daimyos in the east, Koyuki Kazuhana being the exception, Hinata had an active role as the empress of the imperial nation as head of the imperial medic corps, which was one of the major reasons she was respected by the shinobi and samurai. Of course, she was not exempt from the horror that was paperwork. Naruto walked over to her. Really? He asked, slipping his arms around his wife's waist, smiling broadly. Really? Hinata replied, returning the smile. I missed you, she added, wrapping her arms around his waist. She had to go to the hospital early for a meeting with Karen and Kokura Yamada, leaving Naruto in bed alone. The moment, however, was ruined with the arrival of one of the Kunoichi who was part of the Hellcats. Commanded by former Kumo Kunoichi and Jinchuriki Yugito ni, the Hellcats was one of several elite special forces units under Naruto and Hinata's command. The Hellcats were all female, consisting of both Kunoichi and Onna Bugaisha, female samurai, and identified by their khaki flak vests. Both Naruto and Hinata were former understudies of Yugito, as she had taught the both of them assassination techniques, which came in handy during the Unification Wars. Chief. Lady Hinata. Naruto frowned, while Hinata giggled. Releasing Hinata, he turned to face the kneeling Hellcat, who had arrived via Shunshin. He recognized her as Yugito's second-in-command. Yes, Kumi, what is it? He asked, annoyed that his Hinata time was interrupted. Forgive me for interrupting, but I bring word from General Ni herself, the Hellcat replied. There is an 5-man envoy from the east en route to the complex. General Ni has identified them as shinobi from Odogakure no Sato. Naruto's frown deepened. Who is leading them? Hinata asked. General Ni has identified them as the Sound Four and the leader of the envoy is Kabuto Yakushi. They should be arriving within 5 minutes. Naruto nodded. Give my thanks to Yugito. Make sure they are discreetly tailed to the complex. Sir. With that, the Hellcat vanished. Naruto sighed. Guess I'll have to take a rain check for this, he said. No rest for the wicked, I'm afraid. Remain here, since your eyes are a dead giveaway, okay. Okay. House of Sovereigns, Throne Room. Seated on his throne, Rinnegan activated Naruto eyed the white-haired man with a combination of disdain and suspicion. Kurama was not there, as he did not want her to give away any suspicion as to her true identity. The cage-style hat was on his head, effectively hiding his face. Not to take any chances, his face was concealed by his mask. Unlike the cage hats of the East, the Imperial version was solid black, the cloth still white. Unknown to Kabuto Yakushi, this had not been the first time that Naruto and Hinata had a run-in with the cunning shinobi. 6 months earlier, while inspecting the Pakara merchant house's wind outpost near the wind-fire border, Kabuto had been ordered by Orochimaru to check the place out, having heard about the rise of the Western Empire and its leaders. What Kabuto found was the commander of Naruto's elite guards, Major Benasato Mochizuki. Known as the Snake Queen of Kimen, Kabuto had been soundly defeated by the older woman. Then Orochimaru had appeared. The Snake Queen fought the Snake Sannin while Naruto and Hinata watched from the sidelines, Benasato having been warned in advance of Orochimaru's methods. But it wasn't necessary, as Benasato had been more skilled than Orochimaru. The Snake Sannin had been forced to retreat. The white-haired, bespectacled Odo shinobi took a knee, head bowed. Your Imperial Majesty, he began, may your reign be a long and prosperous one. My name is Kabuto Yakushi. I represent Odogakure, the village hidden in the Sound. I bring greetings from my master, Lord Orochimaru. Using his chakra to disguise his voice, think Naruto speaking in Shredder's voice from the first movie, Naruto responded. So what business does your master want with me? Lord Orochimaru has been monitoring the events that have transpired here in the West with great interest, Kabuto said. He is especially impressed that you have united the lands in so little time. He has sent me here to discuss terms of an alliance between your empire and the Sound. Naruto leaned back on his throne. Tell me, Yakushi, what would I gain should I ally myself to the Sound? You would have the backing of one of the most powerful ninja in the East, Kabuto said. Despite our small numbers, you would mostly benefit from Lord Orochimaru's guidance. In other words, take over my body since Sasuke is off limits, and use my army to invade Konoha, Naruto thought darkly. The young emperor made it look like he was in deep thought. I am sorry, but a military alliance is not in the empire's best interest. You misunderstood me, your majesty. Kabuto began, but was cut off. Oh, don't be coy, Yakushi, Naruto replied. Do you really think that you are the first from the east to ask for an alliance? First it was the rock, then it was the cloud, you make number 3. The people has seen war since the era of my great ancestor, the Six Paths Sage. Kabuto's eyes went wide. You're a descendant of the Six Paths himself. I thought only the Senju and the Uchiha were his only descendants. Naruto chuckled dryly. No, the Six Paths had only one child, a daughter, who is the founder of my clan. The two brothers who would later found the Uchiha and Senju lines trained under him, nothing more. When the Six Paths died, they changed their lineage to make it so that they were his progeny, and tried to murder his daughter. Despite the Senju founder wielding the Mokoten and the Uchiha wielding the Sharingan, they were no match for the Rinnegan's power, and were beaten. After that incident, she fled here. It was a half-truth, actually. The Uzumaki clan ancestor did not flee to the west, but instead settled in what was to be known as Whirlpool Country. But we are getting off subject, Naruto continued. The people has seen war since the era of the Six Paths. Unlike the people of the East, they have not known a lasting peace. I saw the lawlessness of the lands and I gave them the peace they desired. I am merely a servant of the people and even an emperor must listen to the will of the people. I am truly sorry that you have come this far, but tell your Lord Orochimaru that my answer is no. Kabuto slowly nodded. I see. In any case, Lord Orochimaru will be disappointed that you will not agree to the alliance. I thank you for your time, your majesty. With a wave of his hand, Naruto excused Kabuto. As soon as the sound envoy left the room, Naruto summoned the commander of Shadow Company. Kazuma, emerging from the shadows as if it was water, was the head of the Kazuma clan, and commander of the appropriately named Shadow Company. A bald, wiry man in his early 50s, Hideo Kazuma was the first to swear loyalty when Naruto had killed Rokubungi Oda. The Kazuma clan were masters of a rare bloodline called Shadow Release, which allowed them to cover major distances by using the shadows of various objects. You called, Chief? Kazuma asked. Have your men tail Yakushi and the Oto envoy, Naruto ordered, removing his mask and returning to his normal voice. Make sure that they are on the first boat out of Kimen. I don't trust him, or the snake. Between the snake and Konoha, I hate Orochimaru more. See to your orders, Kazuma. Kazuma bowed. Right away, my lord. As Kazuma sank back into the shadows, Naruto frowned. Orochimaru was taking an interest in the empire, and even though the snake-loving pedophile was on the back burner, he was a legitimate threat. No way am I letting the snake destroy Konoha, Naruto thought as he deactivated his Rinnegan and removed the hat and mask. That responsibility falls onto me. Looking at his watch he mentally cursed to himself. Damn. Thought I had more time before the meeting with the council. Oh well. Imperial Council Chambers, minutes later. The council hall inside the Hall of Sovereigns was as big as the council chambers back inside Konoha. The council chambers consisted of 3 long tables, the first containing the seats of the emperor, the empress consort, and their advisors. 2 tables located on either side of the emperor's table faced each other, each containing 6 seats for either side. The council was chosen by Naruto and Hinata personally to serve as ministers of their respective fields. The meeting was straightforward. Aside from an uprising of malcontents loyal to Oda which was quickly crushed before it could gain steam, and the financial situation concerning the southern Badlands, there was nothing worthy to report. Good thing that they only met 3 times a month. At the lead table, Naruto and Hinata sat side by side. Next to Hinata was Ayan Kurama, in her human form. Next to Naruto was the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan, Takuma Uzumaki. As the Uzumaki clan was famous for their fuinjutsu, Takuma was his uncle, as Kushina was his older sister. Unlike Kushina and her son, who both wielded the Rinnegan, Takuma was a fuinjutsu master. He was also known as the Maelstrom of Whirlpool, given both his natural fighting abilities, as well as his short temper. When Whirlpool had fallen in the last shinobi war, Kushina, despite being Minato's wife, did not fully trust Konohagakure, and had ordered her brother to flee elsewhere. Taking 500 Uzushiogakure shinobi with him, half of them being Uzumaki clansmen, Takuma fled to the west, and had set up shop in the northern continent. Upon hearing of a rising warlord with the same surname as his own, Takuma sought him out, and found out that the warlord in question was his own nephew. After hearing Naruto and Hinata's story, from his time in Konoha up to being the scapegoat for the Uchiha's attempted defection, which led to his defection, Takuma was furious. But in the end, Naruto had gained family, and more importantly, allies to his cause. When the West was united under Naruto's rule, he had been the first to accept a position of senior advisor to the emperor and empress consort alongside Kurama. Like the shinobi in both the East and West, the samurai also had their own ranking system. An apprentice samurai was the same as a shinobi in training, and received instruction from the academy, the imperial schools where up-and-coming shinobi and samurai learned how to fight. The largest of the schools were in the imperial capital, Kurata Port, South Ichiyama, and Tears Point. Once the amateur samurai passed a series of physical and mental exams, they became Aonisebushi, amateur samurai. It was the shinobi equivalent of genin. Unlike the shinobi system, the Aonisebushi would be assigned to either a three-man cell or apprenticed to an elder samurai. After 2 years, the Aonisebushi were eligible to be promoted to Chukanbushi, middle samurai. The Chukanbushi is the most common rank of samurai, and was the shinobi equivalent of chunin. They were the foot soldiers and archers, the main bulk of the samurai forces under Naruto's command. It is there that the Chukanbushi had to prove their worth. Last, was the Saebushi, elite samurai. The samurai equivalent of junin, they are the highly skilled samurai, a position that would take most of their lives to obtain. The Saebushi were mainly the officers of the imperial military, people who both the samurai and Naruto had fought alongside with and trusted with their lives. Some of the Saebushi were clan heads, others were not. The Saebushi were the ones who took on a single apprentice or a cell of their choosing. They were highly respected by both shinobi and samurai. Naruto himself was of this rank. On Naruto's left, Sanshi, the elder samurai warrior and philosopher who had taught Naruto the ways of the samurai. In most cases, he was a lot like Danzo Shimura, a warhawk. Only difference was that he fought wars to defend his homeland, not to expand his influence. He was also the Minister of Defense. A powerful samurai even to this very day, he held the rank of Kodenbushi, the legendary samurai. In his younger days, as Naruto and Hinata had later found out, he had traveled in the east, defeating Hiruzen Sarutobi, Hanzo the Salamander and even the Sannin. During the Unification War, he had invited Naruto to his village and Naruto became so impressed with the old man, that he asked to be trained in the ways of the samurai. When the empire was created, he was the first that Naruto had invited to be on the council. Despite his old age, Sanshi was well respected by samurai and ninja alike. His granddaughter, Sana Sanshi, who was a member of Yugito's Hellcats, served as part of Naruto's elite guards. He was also the only person who could still kick Narutoshik's falls out of 10. Next was Eiji Kibagami, also from a respected samurai clan with connections in Iron Country, as he had family there, which was helpful when Naruto negotiated a trade agreement between the Empire and Iron. A hard-punching, hard-drinking samurai with a mouth that would make Tayuya blush and Hidan green with envy, he was the first to join up with Naruto in his ambition. He was a Saisebushi-level shinobi who served as the Minister of Samurai Affairs. Despite being a foul-mouthed samurai, he was fiercely loyal to the young emperor, honorable and carried himself as a true samurai. It was also a known fact that he and Kasumi Ehara were romantically involved. His pet wolf, Bijumaru was at his side. Like Sanshi, Eiji had a member of his family as part of the elite guard, his nephew Hideo Kibagami served proudly. Next to Kibagami was the head of the Chiba clan, Kota Chiba, a Junin who served as Minister of Shinobi Affairs. The Chiba clan was a line of ninja who practiced a deadlier style of taijutsu that would put even Rock Lee and Maida Gai to shame, the taijutsu used originally as an assassination technique. Like Sanshi's granddaughter and Eiji's son, her eldest son, Takashi, served as one of Naruto's elite guards, a high honor for the Chiba clan. In most ways, the Chiba clan reminded Naruto of the Inuzuka, fiercely loyal to the pack. Sitting next to Kota was her childhood friend and fellow ninja, Kokura Yamada. The eldest daughter of a former nobleman and a mist refugee, she was the diametric opposite of Zabuza's partner Haku, as her attacks were fire release attacks. A Tokubetsu Junin shinobi, she was the Minister of Health, having been picked for the decision by Hinata herself. In an interesting side note, her bloodline allows her to endure an opponent's fire attacks unscathed. The Yamada clan also had a reputation for being top-notch healers whose skill rivaled that of Tsunade in her prime. Next to the fire-wielding mistress was the regal Kasumi Ehara. She was a Saisebushi-level samurai who served as Minister of the Interior. The Ehara was the most powerful samurai clan in the southern region, in both influence and skill, and aside from the elderly Sanshi who resided on the northern continent, was one of Naruto's major supporters. Kasumi herself was a legendary warrior in her own right, having led troops into battle. Despite being in her 40s, she looked younger. When her husband was killed by Oda's hand, he was about to claim Ehara for his own. Thankfully, Naruto's arrival put a stop to those plans. Her best friend, Murasaki Shibiku, was a popular author of romance novels and poetry, Hinata being her biggest fan. It was also gaining prominence over Jiraiya's Ika Ika series in the East. Seated next to Ehara was the head of the Okajima ninja clan, Hayate Okajima. Nicknamed the Tengu, because of his habit of wearing a Tengu mask to battle, the Okajima clan were skilled in ninjutsu, assassination techniques and rakan. They were the natural rivals of the Shinto clan, who favored open combat over covert assassinations. Naruto had approached the Okajima clan head for an alliance. Hayate was impressed by the boy's bravado and tenacity that he signed on to Naruto's side. Once the war was over, Naruto had returned to the Okajima clan their lands which were taken from them by one of the more corrupt daimyos. In return, the entire Okajima clan swore their eternal loyalty to their new emperor. On Hinata's right, Ryuji Shinzen and his wife Haruka Shinzen, the heads of the Western Empire's premier mercantile guild, Pakara Merchant House, and co-ministers of finance. Ryuji was originally a mercenary ninja, while Haruka had a gift for business and management. They were the first to back Naruto in his ambition financially following the death of Rokubungi Oda. When the unification wars had reached its conclusion, they created the merchant houses which had two purposes, providing imported and exported items across the empire and in the east, while at the same time, keeping a close eye on the more unruly villages in the east. Thanks to Naruto, they now had branches all over the country, as well as several locations in the east, some of which served for gathering intel, as in Iwa, Fire Country and Kumo. Next was Shinoda Wakaba, former pirate captain, now a close business partner and longtime friend with the Shinzens, since his 10-boat fleet was originally used to harass and plunder both Oda's and his allies' supplies. It was Haruka who had pointed out the perks in having a fleet of ships backing up his ambition to Naruto. Now, with the war over, the fleet was now used to transport goods all over the continent, as well as in the elemental countries. In an interesting side note, the Shinzens and Wakaba were both in-laws, since the Shinzen's son had married Wakaba's daughter, which had brought their families into a close alliance. Seated next to Wakaba was Katsumoto Kitahara, a daimyo from the southern region who supported the people and working class. He was overthrown by a power-mad warlord and condemned to wander the lands, until Naruto found him. He was one of the key members in the civilian council in which, thanks to Katsumoto, that his major support base was the civilians themselves. Katsumoto's lands were restored unto him, as well as his title as a reward for his service and loyalty. Given his passion for justice, it was fitting that he served as minster of that post. Next to Wakaba was Shin Akazuki. His home was the southern part of the continent. Shin was the youngest of the council at age 23, and trained as a samurai, having been recently promoted to Saisebushi. The son of Shinji Akazuki, a retired warlord who had fought with Naruto, Shin had made a name for himself during the Unification Wars as a formidable swordsman, and can hold his own against Naruto in their occasional spars. In some cases, he reminded Naruto of Shikamaru at times, brilliant, but lazy. Last, was Rumika Todo. Like Katsumoto, she was a daimyo, but hailed from the north's mountainous Lajja region. Todo was one of the daimyos whose land the late Rokenbungi Oda had an eye for, since her lands contained iron mines deep within the mountains, but once Naruto had eliminated him, she saw the wise decision in backing him in his war of conquest. Her husband was the original daimyo, until his death during a raiding party from Oda's men, forcing her to assume the role. But despite this, she was fiercely loyal to both her people and to the emperor. Zabuza Mamachi and Haku were also sitting in at the emperor's request. Thought to have died in Wave Country in Naruto's first mission, the former Mist Swordsman and his partner had instead fled the country as Mist Hunter ninjas had arrived, forcing the pair to leave high-powered blood clones in their places. Zabuza and Haku had fled to the west, where they had hooked up with bloodline refugees who had fled the purges under Yagura and the Mist Daimyo. When Naruto had arrived on the southern continent with his forces 2 years earlier, Zabuza had already made a name for himself as a powerful warlord, with Haku as his second in command. It was Haku who had discovered that Naruto was the warlord who had united the northern continent under his rule. Zabuza was surprised, to say the least. The little blonde runt who had faced him down on Tezuna's bridge all those years ago had unified the northern continent. What surprised him even more was that Konoha had betrayed him in favor of his traitorous teammate. Despite the fact that he was mostly a bloodthirsty sadist, Zabuza had a set of morals. He decided to join Naruto under one condition, that he would be the one to kill Kakashi Hatake. Naruto agreed, on the condition that he alone would beat the holy hell out of him first before Zabuza killed him. That, Zabuza agreed to. Zabuza was not only in command of his own unit, known as the Demon Brigade, but he also served as the chief interrogator in the Empire's interrogation division. He also taught Naruto Mist-style swordsmanship, which came in handy in his war of conquest. Sanshi cleared his throat. Before we adjourn this meeting, Chief, is there anything else you would like to add? Yes, Naruto replied. As you might or might now know, my wife and I have been in contact with the 4 clans who have defected from Konohagakure no Sato, the Hyuga, the Yamanaka, the Akamaiki and the Nara. Aside from the 4 clans and their heirs, accompanying them are 200 Junin, one of which you might be interested in, Zabuza. His name is Ibiki Morino. Zabuza recognized the name. Ibiki, yes, I know of his reputation. Said to be the best in interrogation and torture. Who is he? Eiji Kibagami asked. He is a Tokubetsu Junin, Hinata explained. Some would describe him as a sadist. Oh, sounds like someone you would like, Mamachi, Eiji snorted, ignoring the sour look Zabuza had given him. Please continue, Lady Hinata. His interrogation techniques are stuff of legend, Hinata continued. Even when Naruto and I were coming up in the Shinobi Academy, Ibiki was someone to be feared. He has the unique ability to cause great pain and suffering without resorting to physical torture. His interrogation skills rely mostly on the ability to torture the mind. His knowledge on human psychology is top-notch. Ibiki is a firm believer of gaining control over a person's spirit by attacking the mind. That much is true, Zabuza said. You can say that I am an admirer of his work. Back in my 7 swordsman days, Kisame had chosen to kill off the shinobi belonging to Mist Cipher Division rather than allow them to fall into his hands. Charming fellow, Kasumi Ahara dryly noted. Ibiki works with Anko Mitarashi, Hinata continued. She is a Tokubetsu Junin, like Ibiki. A former student of Orochimaru, She is a master of interrogation who uses snakes just like her former master. She also loves dango, and is a total sadist. What about the clan heads? Eiji asked. The 4 clan heads were friends with my parents, Naruto said. They, nor their children, did not see me as a demon, unlike the rest of Konoha. Despite the efforts of Sarutobi and the Konoha Council to stunt my growth as a warrior, they looked out for me in their own way. The first clan head is Hiyashi Hyuga. You already know of the Bikagen and its advantages and weaknesses, as well as the caged bird seal. The other 3 clan are known for their teamwork, Hinata continued, the Yamanaka, the Akamaiki and the Nara clans, better known by their team name, the Ino Shika Cho Trio. Ever since Konoha's founding, there always has been a team with that title, as they are famous for their teamwork. First up is Ibiki's partner, Inoichi Yamanaka. Intelligence specialist with a unique talent which is their clan's signature ability. Which is? Kota Chiba asked. The Yamanaka has the ability to read the opponent's minds and search their memories, Hinata said. Their signature technique is the mind-body switch technique, in which the Yamanaka can send their mind into a target's body, overriding the target's mind for a short period of time. He has a daughter, Ino, who was a former teammate of ours. The mind-body switch is just one of the many techniques the Yamanaka has at their disposal. His wife, Kozu Yamanaka, used to own the flower shop in town. Second is the Nara, Naruto said. The Nara are known for their high intellect and battle tactics. They are also known for attracting hot-headed women, low energy, and saying, troublesome. The Nara's specialty is shadow manipulation. The Nara's signature technique is the shadow imitation technique, in which they can extend their shadow and merge with their target's own shadow, forcing the other to imitate the Nara's movements. Shikaku Nara is the clan head. Back in Konoha, he was the Junin commander, given his mastery of battle tactics. He also herds deer in his spare time, and is a natural herbalist. Shikamaru Nara is his son. Last, is the Akamaiki, Hinata finished. The Akamaiki are the powerhouse of the trio, possessing great physical strength and can convert their calories into chakra. The downside to this is that their techniques drain their chakra while in use, and maintaining them during battle can be tiring. For this reason, the Akamaiki have very high chakra levels, and for this reason, has to eat a lot in order to maintain those levels. Shuza Akamaiki is the 15th head of the clan, while Choji Akamaiki is his son. Like I said earlier, Naruto said, these 4 clan heads had done their best to aid me despite Sarutobi's orders not to do so. They offered me shelter, food, and in some cases, a place to sleep. Their children did not see me as Kurama in human flesh. It is because of this, that Hinata and I are going to grant them political asylum into the empire. They should be arriving by the end of the week by ship. Forgive me for being the voice of opposition chief, Kokura Yamada cut in, but you grant the clan's asylum, and then what? Automatic clan status right off the bat? Naruto shook his head. Of course not, Kokura. Just as Hinata and I had to work hard to get where we are at, they will not be given a free pass. They will be on probation for 6 months. When they prove their worth to the unified West, when they show their loyalty to the empire and her people, only then will we accept them as one of the great imperial clans of the imperial nation. Is that reasonable enough for all of you? The council nodded. Their emperor's conditions were acceptable. It was then Eiji raised one hand. Chief, if I was the Hokage, there would be no way that I would let 4 clans of such power leave the village. Are you not worried that Konoha might try something funny? I've already taken precautions in case the cripple or the hag decide to send out assassination squads on the refugees, Naruto replied. You are aware that the Pakara merchant house has branches in the east, particular in Wave, Spring and Water, right? Yes. The refugees had met up with one of the caravans who are on the way to the coast where the bridge once stood. And you know as well as I do that most of the merchants are some of the best shinobi and samurai veterans who had the honor of fighting by our side. Eiji nodded in understanding. Since you are an unknown to Konoha and Fire Country, Attacking the refugees while being escorted to the coast by our caravans not only would cause Konoha to lose face with the villages who are known to us, but it also gives us a valid reason to go to Konoha and put blade and jutsu to asses. He cackled. Chief, you were always such a sneaky little shit. Glad to see you still have the touch. Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment, Naruto replied, used to the older samurai's foul-mouthed tendencies. This, coming from the same guy that came up with a thoughtful, albeit crude description about his wife's demeanor, the only thing bigger than her tits is her heart. Of course, he said that within earshot of Kasumi and the other female members of the council, which earned him a one-way trip to the hospital. He would be in a body cast for the rest of the month. Is there anything else? Hinata asked. The council shook their heads in the negative. Naruto nodded. This meeting is adjourned. 1 week later, the two Pakara cargo ships, each bearing the flag of the unified Western Empire, the black four-symbol seal on a red background, sailed past Karata port and headed inland. Only this time, the ships did not carry goods from the east. These cargo ships carried refugees. It had been a week since what would be known throughout the elemental countries as the Konoha Exodus, in which 4 major clans and more than 100 shinobi had turned in their Hitai Atesh and walked out of Konoha. Tsunade and the Fire Lord could not charge them with desertion, as they had willingly resigned from the shinobi forces. Standing on the deck of the first ship, was Hiashi Hyuga. It had been 6 years since he had last seen Hinata, having sent her away with Naruto in order to spare her being branded with the caged bird seal. Despite his outward appearance of putting down his eldest daughter, Hiashi did care for her, and sending her away was the hardest thing he had ever did. But Hinata was smitten with Minato's kid and sending her with him was the best idea at the time. In that time, Hiyashi's personal view in regards to Tsunade and Jiraiya had taken a severe nosedive. The two Sannin had been close to Minato and Kushina. Tsunade was Mito's granddaughter and Kushina was her niece, thus making her Naruto her great-nephew, while Minato was a former pupil of Jiraiya. Both blamed Naruto for the deaths of Minato and Kushina, when it was clearly the fault of the Uchiha, given the reports he had read on that fateful night. Both had went along with Sarutobi's scheme to make Naruto into Konoha's weapon, and when that failed, opted to banish him from the village when it became clear that despite Hiruzen's machinations in stunting Naruto's growth had failed, even going as far as to place him in the bingo book with a kill on sight order. It was clear that the two Sannin had no love for the Uchiha, but they chose a virtual traitor over a hero. In the 5 years since Hinata's disappearance alongside Naruto, Hiashi had not heard a single word in regards to his eldest child. Then, word began to leak out about events happening in the West. A place so war-torn that not even the Sannin nor the Akatsuki would be in their right mind to venture there, was finally united under the rule of a warlord and his medic ninja wife, having been named emperor and empress consort. When the Pakara merchant houses began to emerge in several key locations, caravans began to appear in Konoha, selling their wares. One such branch was in over the border in Wind Country. That was how Hiashi had found out through one of the merchants, who worked with the Empire's information network, that his daughter was still alive, having fled west and fighting in what was to be known as the Unification Wars alongside Naruto. When the merchant told Hiashi that Naruto was now his son-in-law, he was not surprised in the least bit. What surprised him was that the Empire had been keeping tabs on Konoha and several other villages in the east. The Empire also knew about the tensions threatening to boil over in Konohagakure, which is why the Emperor and Empress consort had reached out to Hiashi. Should things in Konoha get worse to the point that the Hyuga and the Inoshika Cho could not stay, then the Emperor and Empress consort will allow them to migrate to the Western Empire. But there were two obstacles that were in the Hyuga clan head's way. The Council of Hyuga Elders, who had supported the council, and the Godime herself. The same council who had forced his twin brother to either take his place in the Kumo incident or else his son would be killed. The same council who had voted to brand Hinata with the caged bird seal and personally take over Hanabi's training, to make her an emotionless doll. The council and their supporters would be in the way should he decide to take the clan and leave Konoha, to return to the west, the land of his ancestors. Hiyashi knew this, as did his twin brother, Hizashi. The Hyuga elders knew this as well, as the Hyuga's origins were in the northern region, but the clan relocated to the east once west became unstable, and settled in Konohagakure no Sato as it was founded. Which is why the Hyuga elders had been removed from the equation, along with their supporters in the main branch. Hiyashi's late wife not only loved flowers, but was also a skilled kunoichi who specialized in poisons. So poisoning the tea of their elders and their supporters was no hard task for him. With those in the main branch backing him and the full support of the cadet branch, Hiyashi had wiped out the elders and their allies. When Tsunade demanded an explanation as to what had happened, all he replied was that it was clan business, that he and his supporters had averted a civil war by eliminating the traitors to his clan. The final straw came with Higadime, and the Konoha Council had attempted to force his youngest daughter, as well as Inoichi's daughter, the Snake Lady, and his nephew's romantic interest into the Clan Restoration Act. The reason being, as it turned out, Sasuke Uchiha had taken a recently graduated genin under his wing, teaching him the ropes. The boy was an orphan, and was looking to make a name for himself as a shinobi. What better way to make a name for yourself when you have Sasuke Uchiha training you? Then, 3 weeks ago, when the kid made Chunin, Sasuke showed his appreciation by shoving a Chidori into the kid's chest, killing him instantly, but more importantly, gaining the eyes of the betrayer, the Magankyu Sharingan. Only problem was that his daughter, Hanabi, Cell 9, Enko Mitarashi, and the younger Ino Shika Cho trio had witnessed the murder. Of course Sasuke was under the protection of Danzo and the Konoha Council, so the murder was swept under the rug, and written off as justifiable homicide. Only the elder Ino Shika Cho and Hiyashi had backed their children and Cell 9, while Sasuke had the backing of both the Godime and the Council. Then, it all came to a head a week ago. Flashback. Konoha Council Chambers. The tension was thick inside the Council Chambers. On one side was the civilian members of the Council, the merchants and the wealthy elite of Konohagakure no Sato. On the other side, was the shinobi clan heads of the Council, Inoichi Yamanaka, Hiyashi Hyuga, Shikaku Nara, Shuza Akamaiki, Sum Inazuka, Asuma Sarutobi, Shibi Aburame and Kakashi Hataki. Their children sat alongside their parents. Enko Mitarashi was even present at the council's request. Seated at the head of the chambers, flanked by her advisors, Kaharu Udatane and Hanmura Mitokado, was Tsunade Senju, the Godime Hokage of Konoha. Standing in front and to the side of the Godime, was the Warhawk and commander of the Root Anbu, Danzo Shimura. Standing next to him, looking smug over the fact that he had gotten away with murder, was Sasuke Uchiha, now Danzu's protege and the number 2 guy in the Root Anbu. What is this meeting about? Inoichi demanded. Kaharu cleared her throat. It is clear to us that there is quite a bit of tension in Konoha after that dreadful business with that Chunin that the Uchiha had studied under. Dreadful. Tenten parroted. He shoved a Chidori into the guy's chest in front of my cell, Enko, Hanabi and the Ino Shika Cho. We see it as justifiable homicide, Hanmura frowned. Shikaku Nara grunted. Justified only because you sacrificed a Chunin just so that the Uchiha runt could get the Magankyu. You should watch your mouth, Nara, Sasuke threatened. I am the prince of this village. No, you are a blight, the lazy Nara head retorted. You are too troublesome for your own good, even as Danzu's lapdog. Sasuke glared at the Nara clan head, Junin commander, Sharingan ablaze. I'm nobody's lapdog, Nara. I am an elite among elite. You should remember that well. Because I have no problem in showing you what the Magankyu Sharingan can do. Sasuke then jerked slightly. He then found himself pulling out a kunai from his pouch and holding it against his own throat. Looking down, he saw that his shadow was connected to Shikamaru's own, the slacker of a Junin having used his Kajimane to ensnare the Uchiha. Threaten my father again, Uchiha, and Itachi will be the true, last Uchiha, Shikamaru threatened. Before things could get out of control, Tsunade had called for order. That's enough. Shikamaru. Sasuke, the both of you stand down. Sasuke did not plan on doing just that, but a look from Danzo said otherwise. He deactivated the Sharingan, while Shikamaru released the Kajmane. This fighting is pointless, Tsunade said, once both sides calmed down. We need to show the other villages that despite our trials and tribulations, that Konoha is still strong, that the will of fire still burns bright in all of us. Hiashi and the Inoshika Cho did not like where this is going. Which is why we have decided to reactivate the Clan Restoration Act in order to rebuild the Uchiha clan, Hanmura said. Sakura Haruno has already been chosen by Sasuke to be his wife. And he has chosen Anko Mitarashi, Tenten, Ino Yamanaka and Hanabi Hyuga to be his secondary wives. The fathers looked like they've been gut-punched. Sasuke remained smug. You should be honored to have your daughters bear the great responsibility of restoring the Uchiha clan back to greatness. Koharu continued, that Sasuke has chosen them to help rebuild his clan. Hiashi quickly recovered. Honored. Even without my eyes, I can see where this is going. You activated the CRA in order to keep myself and Inoichi in line through our daughters after they had witnessed the Uchiha murder and innocent shinobi. Justifiable homicide, Danzo corrected. It was self-defense. Justified in the fact that Sasuke now has the Magankyu, Inoichi shot back. I refuse to accept this so-called decision of this council. My daughter is not a prize, nor is she breeding stock. Haruno wants to pimp out her daughter. Fine, but I will not let Ino marry Sasuke. The same with mine, Hiashi seconded. I would rather marry Orochimaru than spend one day as that bastard's wife, Anko snapped. Silence. Tsunade barked. The council has decided, and I have agreed. Your daughters and Tenten will be married off to Sasuke Uchiha by the end of the month. If you fail to comply, then I will strip you of clan status, and your children will become wards of the village. Either way, the CRA still stands, and the girls will be married off to Sasuke Uchiha. Do not test me on this matter. Lord Yamanaka, Lord Hyuga, please be reasonable, Hanmura said smoothly, trying to act as the voice of reason. Both of your clans have been here in Konoha ever since this village was founded by Tsunade's grandfather, which means that your clans are only clans because of your skills. Konoha has been good to your clans ever since you joined the village, and it would be a shame if that relationship ended so abruptly. Instead of thinking about your own personal, selfish desires, maybe you should do what's right. Inoichi had caught the underlying meaning, as did Hiashi. Both men looked at their daughters, as if they were playing with their lives. Then Hiashi slowly rose to his feet, and within seconds, stood before the Godime, her advisors, Danzo and Sasuke. Advisor Mitokado, you are absolutely right, he said. The advisors smiled, as did Sasuke. That is, until Hiashi reached inside his robes and pulled out his Hitai-8. I believe the time to do what is right is now, Hiashi said, dropping his Hitai-8, where it made a loud clink upon impacting the ground before walking out of the council chambers. Meanwhile, both generations of the Inoshika Cho looked at one another, and nodded in understanding. It was time to go. At the same time, Hanabi pulled off her own Hitai-8 and dropped it alongside her father's own. Clink, clink. Neji Hyuga's forehead protector landed on top of the Hitai-Atesh left by his uncle and cousin. Clink, clink. Tenten and Rock Lee's Hitai-Atesh landed on top of their teammates. Wait, Koharu shouted. You can't do this. Clink. Inoichi's Hitai-8 landed on the growing pile. Clink. Shuza. Clink. Choji. The sound of metal striking the floor was making Tsunade even more angry. You are shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato. Remember that. Koharu shouted. Clink. Both Ino and Anko gave Sasuke the finger as they walked out, dropping their Hitai-Atesh as they walked out. This is sedition. Treason. Danzo shouted. Clink. Shikaku and Shikamaru's Hitai-Atesh lands on the pile at the same time. No. Consider this our resignation, Shikaku drawled as he and Shikamaru walked out of the chambers. With that act of defiance, what would be known as the Konoha Exodus has begun. End flashback. A Ryo for your thoughts. The voice of Shikaku Nara brought Hiashi back to reality. Turning around, Hiashi faced the now former Junin commander and his two teammates. You've been on edge ever since we've arrived, Shikaku said. Anything we should know that we don't already? Hiashi looked at the three men. It was time to come clean. The West was the ancestral home of my clan, he began. The Hyuga originally came from Kimin, now the imperial capital. When the wars intensified, my clan moved across the sea to the east and settled in Konoha. So in effect, you are coming back home, Shuza said. Hiashi nodded. There's more. Once the wars here were done with, and the Pakara merchants began to arrive, I was visited by a member of the merchant house, who gave me a message. Both Naruto and my daughter had fled to the west when Uzumaki was banished and had fought in the unification wars. So the kid's still alive, Shikaku said, nodding. Given who his parents were, it's really not surprising. Through the merchant, Hinata and Naruto had both promised myself and whoever came with the clan political asylum in the west should things get out of hand back in Konoha. Sounds like those two are pretty well connected with the emperor to pull that off, Inoichi said. Hiashi nodded. It seems that way. Attention. We will be docking at the imperial capital in 30 minutes, the first mate shouted as he moved along the deck. Upon docking, you will be asked to produce identification, so have your ID cards out and ready. Anyone who does not comply will be taken to jail for the night, and you will be sent back east the following morning. Let's not get arrested tonight, people, it looks very bad on my record. Hiashi sighed, the anticipation evident on his face. Can't believe it's been so long since I've seen Hinata. Come on, Hyuga, Inoichi said. We have to prepare. Kimin Harbor. The boat containing the four clans and a sizable number of Junin docked at Kimin Harbor. Once the boat was secured, the refugees began to disembark. At the end of the docks was the gates which led to the imperial capital. 2 guards, one shinobi, the other a samurai, were posted at the gates on guard duty. The samurai was older than his shinobi counterpart, and were studying the Konoha refugees as they approached. Caravan, citizen, pilgrim, tourist, or. Hiashi stepped forward, brandishing the scroll. We are refugees from the east. My daughter sent this scroll through the Pakara merchant house. The 2 guards scanned the scroll for a brief moment before the shinobi disappeared via shunshin. Moments later, the shinobi reappeared, with Yugito and in tow, the former appearing via flame shunshin, while the latter used a lightning shunshin. We'll take it from here, Yugito ordered. As you command, General Ni, the shinobi guard said, returning to his post. Hiyashi's eyes narrowed. You're Yugito Ni, from Kumo, he said, addressing Yugito. Isn't he the smart one, kitten? Matabi noted in a sarcastic tone. Yugito told her tenant to quiet down. Hiashi turned to A. And what is the rakeage of Kumo doing in the employ of the emperor? Former rakeage, a corrected. He pointed to the Hittite which was wrapped around one bicep. I'm with the unified West now. He pointed to Yugito. She's been here longer than I have. Even fought in the unification wars, hence her rank. The emperor and his wife, well, they weren't that just yet. Rescued me from the Akatsuki years ago, Yugito explained. I fought alongside them, and now, I led my own unit. I thought that Hinata and Naruto would come and greet us here, Hiashi said. Change in plans, Yugito said. I am to escort the clan heads and their successors to the imperial palace for a sit-down with the chief and the lady. Everyone else will follow A and head for North Kimin. Everything has been prepared for your arrival, so there is nothing to worry about. What about Naruto and Hinata? Hiashi asked. They are waiting for you inside the complex. Follow me, please. Streets of Kimin City. So what's your story? Ino asked as Yugito led the clan heads and their heirs through the streets of the imperial capital. I fought alongside the emperor and his wife in the unification wars after they rescued me from the Akatsuki, Yugito explained. That was 5 years ago. Hard to believe that the emperor was just a snot-nosed brat back then. So the rumors are true. He's about our age then, right? Shikamaru asked. Yup. Shikamaru noticed that they passed the Suna consulate, which was identified by the Suna Junin standing guard at the gates and the Suna flag, a black background with the white hourglass, hanging out in the front. The Empire's friends with Suna? He asked. Yugito nodded. Yes. Suna is pretty friendly with the unified West. Tamari is Suna's representative here. We also have representatives from Spring Country and from Mist, each with their own consulates and representatives. Growing up, I heard stories about the West, Shuza said. That this place was so dangerous, not even Orochimaru would dare set foot here. Now, I see that things aren't as different here as it was back in Konoha. There's shinobi and even more samurai here than in the east. Yugito chuckled. Those in Iron Country originally came from here. I'm surprised that Konoha doesn't have a trading agreement with the Empire, Inoichi noted. The Emperor and Empress has eyes and ears back east, the blonde Jinchuriki noted. He nor his wife are big fans of Konohagakure. Even he knows that an alliance with a village known for its backstabbing and rewarding potential traitors solely because of their bloodlines is a bad political move. Shikamaru snapped his fingers. The Pakara merchants. Those are part of the Empire's spy network, right? How perspective of you, Nara, Yugito nodded. For a slacker, your intelligence is well earned. But you are partially correct. The Pakara merchant house seen in various locations in the east are in fact a legitimate mercantile guild. But some of its branches also house undercover informants and agents from our intelligence division. For all intents and purposes, Pakara Merchant House is just a humble merchant's guild. Clever, Hanabi said. Minutes later, Yugito and her escort arrived at the Imperial complex. The guards saluted Yugito, who responded with a nod as she led the group inside. Here we are. The Imperial complex. The nerve center of the unified West. Home to the Emperor and the Empress consort. Shuza looked around and let out a low whistle. Nice setup the Emperor has. Not too showy, but not too extravagant, either, he said as Yugito led them to the House of Sovereigns. And it is heavily guarded, Shikaku noted, sensing the chakra signatures around them. The shinobi were well hidden, while the samurai patrolled the grounds. Follow me. The Emperor and Empress consort are both waiting, Yugito said. Imperial Gardens, minutes later. Watching from the shadows, Naruto and Hinata Namikaze watched as the clan heads and their children took in the sights of the gardens. Hiyashi looked pensive, as if they reminded him of something. Hanabi, Ino and Inochi marveled at the exotic flowers and orchids, rare in the east, but common in the west. Shikamaru, Shikaku, Shuza and Choji were looking around, taking in the surroundings. Deciding that they had kept their guests waiting long enough, Naruto and Hinata emerged from behind the group, standing at double arm's length. Naruto cleared his throat. Ahem. Upon turning around, the last thing that the clan heads and their children were expecting to see was the former dead last of the Konoha 11, only now, he was a spitting image of Minato Namikaze with Kushina Uzumaki's hair color, styled in the same manner as how Minato had worn it when he was alive. The whisker marks were gone, his face now shaven. Gone was the orange, as he was dressed in black, vest, pants and boots. The shirt was white, sleeves rolled up. But Hinata had shocked even Hiyashi. She was dressed not in her shinobi uniform, but rather in a stunning black cheongsam with a white lotus imprint, looked incredibly regal in her appearance. Naruto tossed a glance at the sakura trees. The samurai believe that the perfect blossom is a rare thing. They could spend their entire lives looking for that one perfect blossom, and for them, it would not be a wasted life. No way, Ino whispered. Naruto. Here, in the West, they call me Emperor, Naruto replied. Wait, you're the guy who united the lands? Choji asked. The Emperor of the West that everyone back east is talking about. Naruto nodded. He then gestured to Hinata. Hinata also helped, as she fought by my side. She also is the founder of the Imperial Medic Corps. To say that the clan heads, Their kids in Cell 9 were shocked were an understatement. The son of the Yellow Flash and the Red Death, once known as the unpredictable knucklehead shinobi, had once again lived up to his reputation of making the impossible possible. Naruto. Rock Lee dashed forward and engulfed Naruto in a bear hug, much to the amusement of his wife and the hidden shinobi guards inside the gardens. You are the Emperor of the West. Truly the flames of youth shine brightly in you. Gak. Lee. Air. Naruto gasped. Bushy brows had gotten pretty strong in the years since he had left Konoha. Oh, sorry. Lee apologized, releasing Naruto. Hinata's reunion with her family was less dramatic. A hug to her father, to which he had whispered, "I'm so proud of you, and your mother would be too," followed by a second hug to Hanabi and a nod to Neji, who responded in kind. Shikamaru shook his head and chuckled. Unbelievable. Naruto, you truly live up to your title of being unpredictable. Just like his parents, Shikaku seconded. Glad you see so much of mom and dad in me, Naruto said. Take a walk with us. He and Hinata led the group down the garden's pathway, the clan heads flanking them, Hiyashi and Shuza on Hinata's left and Inochi and Shikaku on Naruto's right. Cell 9, Hanabi and the Ino Shika tailed behind. So how was the way in? Hinata asked. Scenic. Hiyashi replied. He looked down at Hinata's hand and noticed the diamond ring on Hinata's finger and the gold wedding band on Naruto's own finger. So, married. Hinata beamed. 2 years. We got married during the final battle at South Ichiyama. Ino, having overhead, asked, you two got married during a war? That's insane. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. It was a spur of the moment type of thing. The alliance that opposed me was consisted of 3 warlords in the southern continent. The first one was smart enough to defect to my side. The last 2 decided to attack at my base in South Ichiyama. Lucky me, as the Hellcats and the Demon Brigade arrived earlier to support the troops I had here. He proposed to me in the midst of the fighting, Hinata continued. Yugito conducted the ceremony right after. After the war and once Naruto and I were recognized as Emperor and Empress Consort, we did the wedding proper. I hate to ask you this, but... Shikamaru began, but was cut off by Naruto. Quote. You want to know about the Jinchuriki who had disappeared, right? When Shikamaru nodded, Naruto confirmed it for him. The Akatsuki does not have them. I intercepted them and granted them political asylum here. All of the Jinchuriki are here. Inochi asked. With the exception of Gaara who is running Suna and the Biju who was sealed inside Yagura, the Jinchuriki are safe, Naruto confirmed. You know firsthand of the bigotry and discrimination that I had faced back in Konoha at the behest of Sarutobi and the 2 Sannin. It was the same in Mist and Iwa. Sure, Yugito and B were not treated as bad, but the animosity was still there. Here, the people see them not as containers, but as people. Han has made his home in the Laja Mountains, acting as guardian to one of the mountain villages there. Roshi, the last I heard, was somewhere near Tears Point in the southern region. Utakata resides in Shinoko, also in the southern region. Fu lives here in the imperial capital, as she is a member of my intelligence division. B lives at one of the trading outposts, while A acts as one of my senior advisors. You already met Yugito, as she is the commander of her own elite unit, the Hellcats. Your actions in Konoha and elsewhere did no go unnoticed, Shikaku noted. I know, Naruto replied. I rescued Utakata from Itachi and Hoshigaki. Hell, Hinata and I rescued Yugito from the zombie brothers when we fled Konoha. Quote. So Orochimaru plans on invading Konoha again? Hiyashi asked. Not at the moment. The civil war in Kumo left the village weak. It will take some time before the snake can build up his forces. He and Hinata stopped and faced the clan heads. You 4 were close friends of my parents. You and the Junin with you stuck up for me when no one else did. I never got the chance to properly thank you all for that. No one should ever go through life the way you did, Inochi said. Not even a Jinchuriki. Naruto nodded. As you know, I promised that day to make up your kindness, and today I will honor my word. Your families will be granted both citizenship and clan status, effective immediately. The Junin that came along with you will also be granted citizenship in the United West and will retain it provided that they serve the unified West as they once served the Leaf. He turned to Hiashi. Lord Hyuga, there is one small matter that must be dealt with. Hiashi could only guess. The caged bird seal. The Emperor nodded. Thanks to Hinata, I found out how to destroy the seal. This is my only condition. If you have any problems with the clan council, the council and their supporters are dead, Lord Emperor, Hanabi interrupted. Naruto and Hinata exchanged glances before turning back to the heiress. Explain, Hinata ordered. There was a civil war between those who supported a marriage between myself and the Uchiha under the CRA, which consisted of about half of the main branch, and my father and myself, along with the more moderate members of the main branch, and all of the cadet branch, Hanabi continued. We lost half our numbers. Tsunade tried to interfere, but father said that it was a clan matter, and outside of her jurisdiction. Bet the old hag did not take that very well, did she? Naruto asked. Knowing her, she would have tried to force Hanabi to marry Sasuke in order to spare father's life, Hinata added. Probably wouldn't have done the same with Ino. Inochi blanched. You sure that was what Tsunade would have done? More than likely, Naruto replied. Your families and the others have been sent to North Kimen. Hinata and I will hold a quick meeting with the others there once you're settled in. Quote. Wait, Lord Emperor, Ino cut in. There's something else. No need for formalities, Ino, Naruto replied smiling broadly. We are still friends. You and the others can address me by my name while in private. Out in public, just call me Chief. It's an old nickname that's stuck with me since my days as a warlord. Ino nodded. Sasuke has the Magankyu Sharingan. Naruto slowly nodded. I know. I saw it when I fought him, Hitaki and Yamato. I'm willing to bet that Danzo and those two old freaks that were Sarutobi's teammates had a hand in it, right? Shikamaru nodded. Troublesome indeed, Naruto. Danzo and those two advisors on the council had set up one of the genin to be a student to the Uchiha. The boy, a fresh-faced academy graduate, looked up to the Uchiha in the same way that the Konohamaru Corps once looked up to you. Naruto nodded. It was a shame that Sarutobi had tried to use his own grandson and his two friends as a connection for Naruto to remain loyal to Konoha. When the banishment orders came down, Konohamaru, Moegi and Udon had showed their true colors, denouncing him as a murderer, claiming that he was the one who had killed Bawako Sarutobi, his grandmother and Hiruzen's wife. In the first year of Naruto's reign, the Konohamaru Corps, having recently made Chunin, had been killed, slaughtered at the hands of Akatsuki members Hidan and Kakuzu, Konohamaru being on the receiving end of the Jashin ritual and curse jutsu. Sasuke befriended the boy, Choji continued, and took him under his wing. They became fast friends. When the boy made Chunin, Sasuke betrayed him by shoving a Chidori into his chest. We know because, aside from Hanabi and the three of us, about 7 Junin and Anko saw Sasuke commit murder. Let me guess, Naruto surmised. You four, the Snake Lady and the Junin notified the council, but Danzo and those two bastards swept it under the rug somehow. Sasuke got off scot-free, and with the Magankyu. You even appealed to Tsunade herself, and she did nothing. Am I right so far? The trio and Hanabi nodded. You told your parents, and they believe you, Naruto continued. The Junin who had accompanied you here are not as gaga over the Uchiha, correct? Again, the trio and Hanabi nodded. And when Hiashi and the first generation Ino Shika Cho tried to complain to Tsunade, she told them to basically off. The CRA was the last straw, as it is through marriage does the Uchiha can reign in control over the Yamanaka and the Hyuga clans. Am I right so far? This time, the fathers of the girls nodded. Even after all this time, that idiot of a former teammate is still weak, Naruto surmised. Itachi's mercy was wasted on him. No matter. I have a buffer against the Sharingan, should the need arise. Which is? Shuza prodded. You are aware of the history of the Six Paths Sage, right? Of that the Uchiha and Senju are descended from him. Naruto asked. When the gathered team nodded, Naruto continued. That's a lie. The Six Paths had only one child, a daughter, who is the founder of the Uzumaki clan line. The founders of the Uchiha and Senju lines only trained under him. It was through Madara that he had unleashed the Vixen upon Konoha when he fought Hashirama for control of tea leaf. Vixen. Hiashi repeated. You mean, yes. The Nine Tails is female, Naruto confirmed. Don't worry. Kurama's not here, he added, as he caught the clan heads looking around nervously. They breathed a sigh of relief. You'll meet her soon enough. Since you're all here, there's something else you should know regarding the Akatsuki. Something that not even Jiraiya and his information network does not know about. And that is, Inoichi asked. Itachi is not the only Uchiha who is a member, Naruto confirmed. There is another. He is the true leader of the Akatsuki. Looking at the clan heads, he revealed what he know. Kurama confirmed it for me. One thing about the Biju is that they cannot lie. The leader of the Akatsuki is a former teammate of my idiot sensei, and the one most directly responsible as to how my life in Konoha had turned out. His name is Obito Uchiha. It was obvious that the clan heads recognized the name. Obito. Shuza parroted. He was on your father's team with Hatake. It was said that he had died in the last Shinobi War. Apparently, the reports of his death were false. He goes by the name Tobi. And it was Obito who had unleashed Kurama onto Konoha and cased me to lose my parents, Naruto finished. So now, this is personal. Obito will die and the Akatsuki will fall. And what about Sasuke? Hiashi asked. He shoved a Chidori into my chest, Naruto deadpanned. There is no hope or redemption for him. If he decides to become a threat, then I will have no problem in eliminating him as well. First things first, though. Neji Hyuga, come forward and remove your headband. Curious, Neji maneuvered his way around the others and stood before Naruto, the headband removed to reveal the caged bird seal in all its hideous glory. There are no slaves here, Naruto said as he began to go through a series of hand seals. And no slave calls the other master. Dispel. Seal destruction. He intoned, pressing 2 fingers against Neji's seal. Neji felt not a searing pain, but what it felt like to him, a mild discomfort as he felt that cursed seal purged itself from his body. Hiashi and Hanabi watched in amazement as the caged bird seal, once thought to be permanent once it had been placed onto a Hyuga, burned away. The caged bird seal, while archaic in nature, is not so permanent as most people would think, Hinata explained. This was one of the things I had planned on doing when I became the head of the clan, to abolish that damn seal altogether. The seal, is it gone? Neji whispered. Tenten, having moved up so she could witness this, nodded, smiling happily. Yes, it's gone. To prove that the seal was gone, Hinata made the hand seal which would activate the caged bird seal. Since Neji did not see it as he was weeping tears of joy, Hiashi and Hanabi did see Hinata's attempt to activate the seal, only to find that the seal did not activate, as it was gone for good. Being a Fuinjutsu expert does has its perks, Naruto explained, pulling out a scroll and handing it to Hiashi. This is the scroll detailing how to remove the seal from the branch members. Addressing the others, he said, as of this moment, all of you are under my protection. But this does not mean that you are given clan status right off the bat. All of you are on probation for 6 months. Prove your worth to myself and the council, and we will welcome you as one of the great imperial clans of the unified West. Sounds reasonable, Hiashi said, while the Ino-Shika Cho trio nodded in agreement. Good. In the meantime, go and get settled in. Tomorrow, there will be a meeting with the council at noon, as they want to meet you and your children. And tell Ibiki to come as well, as Zabuza wants to meet him. Hinata and I will have your assignments ready by then. We'll see you guys out. Oh, and we will be speaking with you in private about what has happened in Konoha, Hinata added. Again, the clan heads and their children nodded. So far, the terms given to them by the former genin-turned rulers were very generous. The last thing they wanted was to earn the ire of the emperor and his wife. A week had passed since the Konoha exodus, in which 4 of Konoha's most prestigious clans had defected from the village hidden in the leaves. 5 years ago, the village hidden in the leaves was considered the strongest of the shinobi villages. With the most powerful of the Jinchuriki as a deterrent and powerful clans such as the Hyuga and several others, it was a village that commanded respect from friend and foe alike. Then, Sasuke Uchiha had attempted to defect to Orochimaru, but was stopped by his teammate and brought back to Konohagakure no Sato. That was followed by the tribunal which had pardoned the Uchiha and had banished the Uzumaki. Shikamaru Nara had spoken in Naruto's defense, as did his father, his 2 teammates, parents and Hiashi Hyuga. The Uchiha had broken the laws, and used the cursed seal to combat Naruto, which meant that he had to use the 9 tails power in retaliation. The law demanded that it was to be Sasuke Uchiha, not Naruto Uzumaki, that should be banished. Surprisingly enough, Anko Mitarashi, Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamaiki, Hinata Hyuga and Cell Guy spoke in Naruto's defense. But they were ignored, and Naruto was banished. When those supporting Naruto protested, Tsunade and the council threatened to strip the 4 clans of clan status, to which the Hyuga and the Ino Shika-cho responded in kind by threatening to leave Konoha, crippling it even more, should they try. Tsunade and the council had no other choice but to back down. After both the Uzumaki and the former Hyuga heiress had fled Konoha, it had become known about the events following the Uchiha retrieval mission. In the months following that incident, things had went downhill from there. Suna was the first to pull out of the alliance it had made with Konoha and Fire Country. Gaara had heard from Tamari about how the Ino Shika-cho and Cell Guy had spoken in Naruto's defense and approved of their actions. If they decide to leave Konoha and settle in Suna, then they would be most welcome. Wave Country soon followed, terminating its trade agreements with Konoha and Fire Country. Second, a scroll came from Spring Daimyo Koyuki Kazuhana. Not only was Spring Country was terminating its trade agreements with Konoha, but given both Hatake and Jiraiya's intimate betrayal of Naruto, she was also pulling out of the Ika Ika movie. She also threatened both Jiraiya and Cell 7 with death should they step foot in Spring Country ever again. As Jiraiya would later find out, the Spring Daimyo would later star in a series of movies based off of Murasaki Shibiku's novels once the empire had been established. As a bonus for Spring, she had left the empire with a trading alliance for her homeland. The same thing happened with the other countries where Naruto had made an impression. Treaties and alliances were pulled out, once they found out not only the circumstances of the banishment orders, but also the relationship between Naruto and the 2 Sannin. A betrayal orchestrated by his godparents. A betrayal by family. In the end, Konohagakure was known as a village who banishes their heroes and rewards traitors. The Fire Lord, as well as the village itself and the 2 Sannin would be synonymous with the word hypocrite, while Kakashi Hatake, the majority of the clans who supported the banishment order, and Sasuke Uchiha himself would be synonymous with the word traitor. Even Iwa, who hated Konoha with a passion, was shocked as to how the son of their most hated enemy was treated. Despite the Stone's long-standing policy on Jinchuriki, they would have thought that the son of the Yondaime would be better treated. 2 years passed, and despite Tsunade sending out shinobi and Anbu to search for Naruto and Hinata, nothing was heard from them. Then came the rumors from the west. A place which was war-torn since the era of the 6 paths that not even the Akatsuki would dare to travel there. The wars which had plagued the west were now over, and the lands were brought under the rule of a single ruler and his wife. The emperor and empress consort. Then, merchant houses began to appear in Spring Country, Wave Country and Wind Country and several minor countries. From what Asuma had found out from several traveling merchants while attending the Chunin exams with his nephew's team while in Suna, the mercantile guild was known as the Pakara Merchant House, and it had originated from the west, now known as the Unified Western Empire. Its rulers was the emperor and his wife, the empress consort. From what I found out, the emperor is just a kid, Asuma had said. He was only 14 when he killed one of the more powerful warlords and united the western lands under his rule 2 years later. His wife, the empress consort, is a medic nin and oversees the imperial medic program. The Pakara merchants spoke highly of him. He is loved by the people and respected by shinobi and samurai alike. Out of everyone in the West, he is clearly the strongest. Sasuke Uchiha wasn't impressed. Then, 1 year after Asuma had given his report, Jiraiya reported that the Jinchuriki were disappearing. Yugito Ni was the first, but she had vanished around the same time Naruto had been banished. Then came the reports that Iwa had lost their Jinchuriki. And not long after that, A and B were overthrown by pro-Odo forces and they too disappeared. Fu from Taki had also vanished and the rogue mist ninja Utakata and his student Hotaru were also gone. Tsunade and Jiraiya had suspected that the Akatsuki had taken them, but in the back of their minds, they suspected that the unified West was the main culprit, as Jiraiya had heard that the Akatsuki did not have any of them through his spy. The only Jinchuriki left in the elemental countries was Gaara and he was the Kazakage of Suna. Second, the emperor had quite the interest in Wave Country, as Konoha had found out when they tried to send a force led by Kakashi Hatake to force Tazuna and the Wave Council to re-establish relations with Konoha and to change the name of the bridge from the Great Naruto Bridge to the Great Uchiha Bridge. Upon reaching the bridge, they arrived just in time to see the bridge detonate from the multitude of exploding tags, once again separating Wave from Fire Country. Disappointed, the Konoha shinobi returned home. It was also known that a high-ranking official and his wife, a man dressed in black, conducted inspection tours of the Pakara merchant house branches in the east. Konoha jumped at the chance to find out the identity of the mystery ruler and his wife. Danzo Shimura had sent 2 squads of his elite root Anbu to retrieve the emperor and his wife. He did not take into consideration that the man in black would have a crack team of bodyguards consisting of shinobi and samurai guarding them. Jiraiya had came along to watch from the shadows, and watched in shock at 8 warriors took apart 12 of Danzu's elite Nei forces while the man in black and his wife merely sat back and watched while drinking their tea. Much to Jiraiya's dismay, the man's face was concealed by a black cage-style hat, while the woman's dark bangs concealed her eyes, so identification was a bust. Danzo was furious. The Nei he had sent was the cream of the crop, and the elite guards, the mystery man's bodyguards, had crushed them without breaking a sweat. Jiraiya had reported to the council that the elite guards were, if not, even more skilled than their Tokubetsu Junin. 6 months after that, Jiraiya had received word from his spy network that Orochimaru was seen lurking near the Fire Wind border with Kabuto, checking out the Pakara outpost, located about 5 miles inside Wind Country. There, he witnessed from the shadows both Kabuto and Orochimaru get their asses handed to them by who he managed to identify as the commander of the man in black's bodyguards. When Orochimaru summoned Manda, she responded by producing her own summon, a massive, 7-headed serpent which was even bigger than Manda. Orochimaru, Kabuto and Manda were forced to retreat. It was then decided that Hatake, Yamato and Sasuke Uchiha, the latter having been taken as an apprentice to Danzo, was the best chance that Konoha had in getting the information needed from the mystery man. Jiraiya's spy network had tracked the man in black to T Country, where one of his elite guards was competing in a taijutsu tournament. By this time, the man in black was well known, even to the point that a group of S-class missing ninja from Kumo and Iwa tried to kidnap him for ransom, and had also tracked him to T Country. And as Kakashi, Yamato and Sasuke bear witnessed, the man in black himself was a highly skilled fighter, as he brutally killed the S-class group of missing nin easily. Missing ninja that could even give Konoha some serious problems. Even more so, he killed them all without breaking a sweat. From Kakashi and Yamato's reports, Sasuke had initiated combat first, followed by Kakashi and Yamato. Despite both Sasuke and Kakashi wielding the Sharingan and Yamato using the Mokoden, the man in black had brutally beaten all three men down. Kakashi had it the worst, as the man in black had punted him through a tree. Yamato was out of the running with a broken leg, leaving Sasuke to fight the man. It was Sasuke himself who was privy as to who the man in black was. The man in black was the Emperor of the Unified West. Once Jiraiya had confirmed it, Tsunade had rescinded her orders in bringing the man in, as the last thing she wanted was a war that could easily spell disaster for Konoha. But the council was not convinced, and there was a group of Pakera merchants in the village. Deciding to hear it from the horse's mouth, Tsunade summoned one of the merchants in for questioning. Konoha Council Chambers. The merchant in question was a former kunoichi named Sachiko Asahina. Following the Unification War, she had left her unit at the age of 27 and had signed on to the Western Empire's Intelligence Division, which ultimately led her to the east, her assignment being Fire County. Her cover was that of a kunoichi turned merchant working for the Pakera Merchant House's outpost on the Fire Lightning border. But in truth, she never did retired from duty. She also had a paltry bounty of 25 million ryo placed on her head, given her role in killing a group of bandits who had tried to raid the Pakera merchant caravan while on the road to the fire capital. From what Konoha knew about her, she held a bloodline, fire release, allowing her to wield purple flames. Twice a week, she and her entourage of Pakera merchants would travel to Konoha. She was also loyal to her emperor to the point that she nearly blew her cover when she ended up arriving on the anniversary of Naruto's banishment. Fortunately, her coworkers had managed to calm her down. So imagine her surprise while packing up the stand and preparing for the trip back to the fire capital. She was summoned to the Hokage Tower by 3 members of the Anbu to face the Konoha Council. Jiraiya was also present, watching from the sidelines. The years had not been too kind on the Sannin. Once his role in Naruto's betrayal had become known, his reputation had went down the gutter. Through Daimyo Kazuhana, his Ika Ika series had stopped selling throughout the elemental countries, the Ika Ika movie would not be made. In his last mission, Jiraiya had narrowly survived. While investigating the Akatsuki, Jiraiya was ambushed near a megakure by Konan and the 6 Paths of Pain. Despite his senjutsu and his toad summon, Jiraiya had nearly died in the encounter. Last, his Ika Ika series had lost its popularity due to a new series of romantic novels and poems emerging from the West through the Pakera Merchants by Murasaki Shibiku. Much to Jiraiya's dismay, Murasaki's novels were a lot better than the raunchy Ika Ika series. So much so that Koyuki Kazuhana had signed on to do the movies. Tsunade looked at the former kunoichi, easily identified by her crimson flak vest and her ninjutsu, which was strapped to her back. Sachiko looked back at her with a bored, yet curious expression. Also present was Kakashi Hatake and Sasuke Uchiha, the latter looking at her like she was a piece of meat. The slug sage cleared her throat. First off, thank you for coming to this meeting. You are not in trouble of any kind. We just have some questions we would like to ask of you. Sachiko shrugged her shoulders. Shoot. First off, what's your name? Tsunade asked. Sachiko Asahina, former captain of the Imperial Defense Forces, 3rd Battalion, 7th Division, 1st Squad. Now, I'm a merchant with the Pakera Merchant House, Sachiko replied. A merchant, yet you are armed and wear the flak vest of a ninja, Kaharu pointed out. I wear this as a badge of honor. To remind myself that even though I am a merchant, I will always be a ninja, Sachiko replied. The katana is for self-defense. The shinobi could respect that, Danzo included. And Anbu handed her the picture of the disguised Naruto in his man in black outfit and the disguised Hinata in her cheongsam dress, a rose in her hair, but her face was away from the picture, so identification was impossible. Can you identify the couple in the picture? Tsunade asked. Of course, Sachiko replied. That's the Emperor of the West. The woman is his wife, the Empress consort. Whispers and murmurs were heard throughout the council chambers. Do they have names? Danzo asked. They do, but I am under orders not to say it. To ensure this, There is a seal on my tongue which keeps me from speaking their names. The emperor and his wife has many enemies, and there are those in the east who wish to make a name for themselves by eliminating his imperial majesty and take his throne. His clan is virtually the richest out of all of the clans in the west. That was understandable to the gathered shinobi. That's not good enough, Asuna Haruno snapped. Tell us their names. Sachiko turned to the civilian council member. You don't like that? Tough shit. I answer to the emperor and the empress consort, not you. How dare you? Asuna shouted, rising to her feet. You will tell us their names right now, or else we will have you arrested. Haruno, sit down, Tsunade ordered. Leave it to the hot-headed Haruno to antagonize their guest. But, Asuna sputtered, shut up and sit down. The godime bellowed, the sheer will alone made Asuna collapse into her seat. Once Asuna was properly humbled, Tsunade turned back to Sachiko. I apologize for Representative Haruno's behavior. Apology accepted, Lady Hokage, Sachiko replied. I take it you want to know more about the boss. The boss? Tsunade repeated. It's a nickname we have for the emperor, Sachiko explained. It goes back during the days of the Unification War. To answer your question, yes, Tsunade replied. We would like to know more. He's tall, 6 feet even, reddish blonde hair, blue eyes. But when he uses his bloodline, they turn to purple with a ripple-like pattern. Likes to wear black, which earned him the nickname, the Man in Black. I fought alongside him and his wife in the Unification War, back when he was a teenager. You mean? Sum began. Sachiko nodded. He unified the lands and became emperor when he was 16 years old. That was 2 years ago. Quite an amazing feat for a kid. Both he and the lady married during the final battle at South Ichiyama. Sasuke snorted. Had I been in command of the imperial forces, I would have ended the conflict much sooner, as I am an elite. Sachiko turned to the Uchiha with an innocent smile. I seriously doubt that. Word has spread that you and 2 other Junin-level shinobi had been defeated at the boss's hands. This after he had killed a group of S-class shinobi. So much for being an elite. What can you tell us about his wife? Shibi Aburame asked, quickly diffusing the situation while Kakashi ordered Sasuke to sit down. His wife is no slouch. She is highly skilled in taijutsu and medical ninjutsu. She is also the founder of the Imperial Medical Corps, which produces top-notch medics for both shinobi and samurai. In the meantime, something had clicked in Jiraiya's head. Sachiko had said that his eyes were purple, with ripples, a sign of his bloodline. Kakashi and Yamato said the same thing in their reports. He then asked her, Your emperor, the bloodline you described, purple eyes with ripples. Yes, Sachiko confirmed. The emperor wields the most powerful of the dojutsu, the Rinnegan. As he is a direct descendant of the Six Paths Sage, the bloodline passed down to him, thus earning him the nickname, Emperor of the Six Paths. I thought only the Senju and the Uchiha were descended from the Six Paths, Danzo said. The Six Paths adopted the ancestors who would become the Uchiha and Senju clan founders, Sachiko calmly explained. The Six Paths had one child, a daughter, of whom the Rinnegan was passed on to. She is the true descendant of the Six Paths. Is that all? I need to get back to the outpost. Tsunade nodded and with a small bow, Sachiko used a fire shunsen to make her exit. Hitch read, The Brave D Office of the Hokage. After Tsunade had dispersed the council, she was back inside her office. Also present were the 2 elder advisors, Councilman Shimura and Jiraiya. Shizune stood nearby, holding Taunton in her arms. What do you know about the Rinnegan? Tsunade asked her former teammate. It's what Asahina says, the most powerful of the dojutsu, Jiraiya explained. It allows the wielder to master each of the 5 elements. Only one other person had the Rinnegan, but I have lost contact with him early on. It can't be even more powerful than the Sharingan, can it? Hanmura asked. It is, Jiraiya confirmed. Add the fact that the Emperor is not much older than the Uchiha, and the West live and breathe warfare ever since the era of the Six Paths, the Emperor could, is a powerful warrior. In some cases, he could be even more powerful than the first 4 Hokages combined. There's no way that a snot-nosed brat could be even more powerful than the Uchiha. Koharu snapped. Still, this is something that we cannot ignore, Danzo commented. With Konoha's reputation in the gutter, we are at its weakest since the Nine Tails attacked us. Suna stands poised to take our position as the strongest shinobi village, and the village in Spring Country is a serious threat to our standing. With the other nations supporting the Kyuubi brat, our enemies can attack us without penalty. This man in black, this Emperor of the Unified West, we must reach out to him, to seek an alliance with him. I concur, Hanmura seconded. The Unified West, from what I have heard, has powerful warriors, both shinobi and samurai. If we can get an alliance with him, we can send advisors to the Western Empire to make sure that he has Konoha's best interests at heart. The hidden statement did not go by Jiraiya or Tsunade. What Homura had meant by best interests had literally meant using the Empire's resources and manpower to rebuild Konoha's infrastructure, and if the Emperor was a weak-willed fellow, then they could make him into a puppet ruler while they controlled everything from behind the scenes. Tsunade turned to Jiraiya. Looks like you're going to the Western Empire, Jiraiya. Consider this an S-ranked mission of the utmost importance. But you're not going alone. I want you to take Captains Hatake and Sarutobi with you, along with Junin's Haruno, Inuzuka and Aburame as escort. Aside from yourself, Koharu and Hanmura will accompany you. Find out what the Emperor's motives are, and see if the rumors of him retrieving the Jinchuriki are true. If they are, Jiraiya prodded. The Biju are the property of the Senju clan, which makes the Jinchuriki, by extension, property of the Senju and of the Leaf, Tsunade replied. My grandfather handed over the Biju to the other shinobi villages in order to keep the peace. If the Emperor did in fact take the Jinchuriki, he shifted the balance of power in his favor. Which means that if he does become hostile, then he could unleash the power of the Jinchuriki on the Leaf, Jiraiya finished. I will go as well, Danzo said. Sasuke Uchiha and Sai will accompany me as my personal guards. Someone has to see whether or not the Empire will be a threat to the Leaf in the future. If the Emperor decided to join our side, it will prove beneficial to us in the long run. Fine, Tsunade snapped. Make sure that both you and Hatake keeps a leash on the Uchiha. I will not have Konoha destroyed because that idiot cannot keep his ego in check. Who knows? The Uchiha could find himself a wife in the Unified West, which could make our claim even more stronger. Looking around for a moment, she asked, where is Sasuke? Streets of Konoha. At the same time, Sachiko Asahina appeared before the other Pakera merchants, as they had just finished packing up their stand, securing the loads onto several horse-pulled carts. Everything okay, Captain? Miko Nanakase asked. Unlike Sachiko, she was a samurai assigned to protect the Pakera merchants. Sachiko nodded. Yes, everything is fine. Let's go. As Sachiko and the Pakera caravan and their guard prepared to make their way out of Konoha, they received an unwelcome sight. That sight was Sasuke Uchiha. He was not alone, as he was flanked by 2 of Danzu's root Anbu. Wonderful, Sachiko muttered. When she had accepted the assignment to head overseas as part of the Empire's information network, Naruto had briefed the team of informants and merchants about the senior hierarchy within Konoha, as well as his former team. So she was prepared when she was brought in for questioning by the Godime and the council. Sasuke fell in step beside Sachiko, the root Anbu following close behind. You are a strong kunoichi, Captain Asahina, he began. Where I'm from, you have to be, Sachiko replied. You either become strong or you become the victim. I was there, you know, when your caravan was attacked by bandits, Sasuke continued. And I pride myself in seeing strength as well as beauty. Sachiko, on the other hand, was fighting the urge not to gut her emperor's former teammate. As you can see, I am just like you, an elite, Sasuke said. Although the people in Konohagakure treat me more like a prince. Can you make this quick? Sachiko asked. Not to sound rude or anything, but my people have a long journey ahead of us. We need to get back to the outpost. Very well, Sasuke replied. Captain Asahina, I am proposing that we unite our clans in marriage. Sachiko stopped and turned to the Uchiha. I am honored that you would ask me to marry you, she replied, but I must decline, as I am already married. That shot Sasuke down. Pity. What does your husband have that I don't? I am an Uchiha, an elite among elite. No matter. When you want a true shinobi for a husband, I will be waiting, Captain Asahina. I wouldn't hold my breath, you bastard, Sachiko thought darkly as she and her caravan exited the village. The next day, inside the House of Sovereigns, Hiyashi Hyuga, Hanabi Hyuga, Inoichi Yamanaka, Ino Yamanaka, Shikaku Nara, Shikamaru Nara, Shuza Akamaiki, Shoji Akamaiki, Anko Mitarashi, and Ibiki Morino stood before the Imperial Council. Naruto and Hinata Namikaze sat at their usual heads at the table, along with Takuma Uzumaki, and Kurama. Naruto had revealed Kurama as the Nine Tails in human form, and had explained the circumstances in regards to the attack on Konoha. The clan heads and their heirs had taken the news quite well. That in the empire was also home to half-demons in Hanyu, all who had sworn loyalty to the emperor and empress consort. Zabuza Mamachi was also present, the mist swordsman turned demon brigade general wishing to meet the legendary Ibiki. Naruto and Hinata were all business, not letting their personal relationships with the Konoha refugees get in the way as the council introduced themselves to the former clan heads and their children. Now, I've been looking over your files along with my wife and my advisors, Naruto began, and we have come up with your assignments. First off, in order to do your job, you are all hereby promoted to Junin. An aide appeared before the refugees, holding several hitai atesh on a small tray. Hiyashi, Hanabi, Ibiki and both generations of the Ino Shika Cho each retrieved a hitai 8. Once the aide was gone, Naruto continued with the meeting. Ibiki Morino, Yu, Anko Mitarashi and Inoichi Yamanaka are assigned to the interrogation division. At that moment, Zabuza stepped forward. This is General Zabuza Mamachi, commander of the Demon Brigade, and head of the interrogation division. Inoichi recognized the name. You're the demon of the mist. That I am, Zabuza replied. But I prefer the demon of Kimen. The chief has spoken highly of you, Yamanaka. Turning to Ibiki, he said, Morino. So we finally meet in the flesh. I've heard of you as well, Mamachi, Ibiki replied. I just wanted to say that I am a big fan of your work, and I can't wait to see you in action, Zabuza said. Here, we are in the business of interrogation and torture. And let me tell you that here, business is good. Hinata nudged her husband. You think that Zabuza enjoys his job a bit too much? She whispered. Can't deny the results, Naruto whispered back. Clearing his throat, Naruto continued the meeting. Shikamaru Nara, you noticed the Suna consulate in the city, right? Yeah, I did, Chief, the slacker replied. Your assignment is that you are my liaison to the Suna consulate, Naruto said. Tamari is the Suna representative here. Shikamaru muttered. Troublesome, under his breath, but accepted the assignment. Shikaku Nara, as you were the Junin commander, you are assigned to the Ministry of Shinobi Affairs under Okajima, Naruto said. Despite your bad habits of being a slacker, you are also impartial and will not take no one's sides when it comes to investigating shinobi matters. Shuza and his son will accompany you. This does not mean that I will break up the Ino Shika Cho. Both teams will be called on to help the people. Hinata turned to Ino. Ino Yamanaka, your file said that you were studying to be a medic nin, right? Yes, Lady Hinata, Ino replied. The Imperial Medic Corps has produced top-notch medic nins and combat medics, Hinata explained. Matsuri of Suna was a protege of mine, as she is now the head of Suna's medic program. If you wish, you can study under me. Ino nodded her head in approval. I'd be honored, Lady Hinata, she gushed. Hinata turned to her father. Since it's only fair for one of my husband's clansmen to serve as an advisor, I talked it over with the others and they agreed to offer you the chance to join the advisor staff. I accept your offer, Hiyashi said. There is still the matter of your position within the clan. Hanabi can take over as head of the clan, Hinata suggested. I will officially hand over that responsibility to her. Hiyashi nodded. And the other Hyuga? They will serve as part of the military police force patrolling Kimen, Naruto replied. There's something else I want to know. What were the views on the other Junin senseis? They supported the Godime and the CRA, Shikaku said. Sarutobi and his wife, Maida Guy, and Hitaki. At that moment, a shinobi working for the intelligence division appeared via Shunshin and handed Naruto a scroll. Naruto thanked the shinobi, who disappeared and opened the scroll. Hinata leaned over to read the contents of the scroll and immediately frowned. Well, Naruto drawled. That didn't take them very long. What is it? Inoichi asked. Naruto passed the scroll to a guard, who in turn passed it to Hiyashi, allowing him and the other clan heads to read over his shoulders. This has been verified? Hiyashi asked. Afraid so, Naruto replied. But it was something that I was expecting once the West became known to the countries and the shinobi villages back east. Looks like I'm going to have to face my past. Troublesome, Shikaku said. Senju has sent Jiraiya, Shimura, Mitokado and Udatane here, with Hitaki, Sarutobi and the remnants of cells 7 and 8 as part of their guard. Konoha has become desperate, Naruto said. With my banishment, they had become a virtual pariah state along with all of Fire Country. Now, with 4 of their clans here, along with some of their most experienced Junin, Konoha, in the eyes of the other major villages, will no longer be seen as one of the strongest. Suna will more than likely take Konoha's spot as the strongest village. There's still the matter of the envoy, Sanshi continued, interlacing his fingers. With Konoha's reputation gone, Senju had more than likely sent the envoy here to negotiate a military and political alliance. Second, Katsumoto added, since the imperial nation is still young as is our rulers, Konoha would only leech off of us, use our resources to further their agenda. In most cases, they would transform our emperor into a puppet ruler. And Danzo? Shikaku asked. It takes a warhawk to know a warhawk, the elder samurai continued. Shimura wants to investigate our military capabilities, to gauge our strength. Despite their political savvy, we have the muscle. But most important, to see whether or not we are a threat. In the event that he sees us as such, more than likely, he would, shall we say, cut the head off the snake. Are you sure about that? Hiyashi asked. If I was Shimura, I would, Sanshi replied. What's the exact time of arrival? They will arrive on Thursday night, Naruto replied. As much as I would like to turn them away, I can't as it would violate the laws of hospitality in regards to foreign envoys. Meanwhile, with Cell 9. While Naruto and the Imperial Council made plans as to how they would deal with Jiraiya and the Konoha envoy once they arrived, Tenten, Rock Lee and Neji Hyuga decided to walk around the Imperial capital. Neji was in good spirits following the removal of the caged bird seal. Aside from that fact, he could publicly pursue his relationship with Tenten without any consequence. As noon approached, the trio was strolling through the imperial capital's merchant district, when Tenten stopped in her tracks in front of a store. Once Neji and Rock Lee stopped and looked at what caused Tenten to stop, they shook their heads in resignation. Tenten had been their teammate for many years and she prided herself on being the resident weapons master for Cell Guy. Which is why the store in question which made Tenten pause was Kimen's premier weapons shop, think the Wutai weapons shop, but bigger. The sign on the side read Himura Weapons and Accessories. Resigning themselves to their proverbial fate, Neji and Rock Lee followed Tenten inside. Weapons lined the walls. Swords, staffs, various melee weapons, the works. The weapons vendor was easily identified by her khaki flak vest as a member of the Hellcats, and she looked older than Tenten. She watched with mild amusement as the woman with the buns looked at the weapons with great interest. Behind the vendor was various types of equipment and accessories. Need help with anything? The vendor asked. Tenten shook her head. No. Just looking. I can see you have an eye for weapons, the vendor said. You have no idea, Neji said, ignoring the nasty look his girlfriend was giving him. You won't find no better weapons here in the West, or in the East, for that matter, the vendor said. That comment got the trio's attention. How did you? Rock Lee began. It's quite the hot topic here among the people here. That and it's pretty obvious that you three are not originally from here. I'm sorry, where are my manners? I'm Miko Himura. This is my family's weapons shop. I used to own a weapons shop back in Konoha, Tenten replied. But I ended up having to sell it when I left Konoha during the exodus. She picked up a knife and inspected it. To Tenten, it was unique, as the blade was about 24 inches long, the cutting edge of the blade being inwardly curved in shape. That's a favorite weapon in the Laja Mountains north of here, Miko explained. The Empress wields a pair. It's called a kukri knife. It's beautiful, Tenten said. The metal used in our weapons comes from the Laja Mountains, Miko explained. The iron in the mountains is very strong. Aside from selling weapons, we also do custom orders, as our clan are also the best swordsmiths and metal workers in the West. We carry katanas, ninjatus, tantos, dao broadswords, just damn near anything your heart desires. We also sell accessories such as storage scrolls, weights, even medical kits. So what are you? Shinobi or samurai? Neji asked. Samurai, Miko replied. Recently promoted to the rank of Saisebushi, which is the samurai equivalent of Junin. So you came from Konoha, which meant you knew the chief and his wife when they were growing up, right? When the trio nodded, Miko asked, so what were they like? He wore orange, Tenten deadpanned. A color which all but screamed, kill me. That, and he was known as the unpredictable, knuckle-headed ninja of Konoha. His wife is my cousin. She had a crush on him when we were in the academy. Our relationship was, for lack of a better term, strained, Neji said, remembering the Chunin exams in which he had nearly killed Hinata out of spite, followed by Naruto beating him inside the Konoha stadium. Fortunately, she's not the type to hold grudges. Tenten eyed the flak vest. I've seen that same type of vest on several of the kunoichi and samurai. This identifies me as a member of the Hellcats, Miko said, noticing Yugito enter the store, while the trio of shinobi did not. The Hellcats? Tenten parroted. What's that? The Hellcat unit is an all-female unit consisting of kunoichi and onabugaisha under my command, Yugito explained, enjoying the fact that she had gotten the jump on the three former Konoha shinobi. We are the best at what we do and I won't work with anyone who is up to snuff. You have a weapons specialist? Tenten asked. Yeah, her, Yugito replied, pointing to Miko. But she is my samurai weapons specialist. Why? You wish to sign up? Tenten nodded. I'm interested in wanting to know more. Yugito looked at the younger woman, as if she was sizing her up. You show promise, and I pride myself on finding such talent. Come by the Red Lotus later on for lunch. We'll talk some more. Tenten nodded eagerly. Okay. The Konoha envoy consisting of Jiraiya, the two elders, Asuma Sarutobi, Kakashi Hatake, Sai and the remnants of Cells 7 and 9, arrived in Kimin City late Thursday night. Tsunade and the Konoha Council had made it clear, as this was an SS-class mission of the utmost importance. The Konoha envoy was to gain an audience with the Emperor of the Unified West and seek a military and political alliance with Konoha and Fire Country. Upon arrival in the imperial capital, the first thing that Jiraiya and the others did was secure lodgings for their stay. The customs officer who had checked their identification had pointed them in the direction of the Red Lotus Inn, a three-story inn and restaurant who catered to tourists and dignitaries. Unknown to Jiraiya and the others was that the owner of the Red Lotus was married to a member of the Empire's Information Division, the members of the Demon Brigade watching their every move. Once the Konoha group was settled in, they had put in the request for a guide to show them around the imperial capital. The Red Lotus was built around two hot springs, and the Red Lotus was famous for its springs. Only the hot springs in the Laja Mountains surpassed those found at the inn. Of course, it took both Asuma and Kakashi to keep Jiraiya away from peeping in the hot springs. Meanwhile, inside the House of Sovereigns, the Emperor and Empress of the unified Western Empire were in a meeting with the captain of the elite guards, the team of shinobi and samurai assigned to protect the Emperor and Empress consort. Benesato Minazuki was a member of the Minazuki clan. The Minazuki was known to both the shinobi and the samurai as the Snake Tribe, for good reason, as the Minazuki clan were poison specialists, and claimed ancestry from the legendary eight-headed serpent, Yamada no Orochi. Aside from being poison specialists, the Minazuki were also skilled assassins, and were a serious thorn in Rokubungi Oda's side when he ran Kimen. Like Orochimaru, the Minazuki had snake summons, but unlike Manda, theirs had multiple heads and was much bigger, with Benesato's main summon being the seven-headed serpent known as Agaya. Their taijutsu style was also modeled around the snake, think Shi Quan, the same style Christie uses combined with Shang Tsung's snake style, and was proven to be incredibly deadly. It was because of her abilities that she was known as the Snake Queen of Kimen. Benesato was as tough as she was beautiful, and was dressed in her casual attire which reminded Naruto of Tsunade's attire, save that the colors were different: a white haori with the design of Yamada no Orochi on the back, a black sleeveless kimono-style blouse which was held closed by a gray obi. Her pants are the same color as her blouse and obi. The tattoos on her shoulders and neckline were slightly visible, while her left arm had a tattoo of a snake coiled around her arm, ending at her wrist. Her hair fell down her back, ending at her waist. As Naruto and Hinata found out, Benesato herself was the diametric opposite of Orochimaru. She had the beauty and brains to match the snake Sannin, but not his ego nor his desire for immortality. Despite being roughly the age of the Sannin, she looked like she was in her mid-20s. She did not use an immortality jutsu like Orochimaru or a genjutsu like Tsunade, but as with the female members of the Minazuki clan, shed their skin to maintain their youthful appearance. Last, both her and the Minazuki clan were loyal to their emperor and empress. Her mother, Seiko Minazuki, was the matriarch of the clan. She was offered a place on the council, but had declined, having decided to retire from the post and naming her second child, Benesato's younger brother Benjiro, as her successor. Benjiro worked in the Shinobi Affairs Division. A prodigy in her younger days, she was the only one who can beat Takuma Chiba 6 falls out of 10, and could give the Empress consort a run for her money. Benesato also had run-ins with the shinobi from Konohagakure no Sato, as she accompanied her emperor and empress to the east on inspections of the consulates and the Pakara merchant houses. While competing in a taijutsu tournament in Tea Country, she had defeated Maida Guy, who was there with several other junin investigating the emperor and empress consort, unknowns to the both of them at the time. Among her victories against those who had wronged her emperor and empress was against Asuma Sarutobi, Sume Inuzuka and Maida Guy. She also scared the crap out of Jiraiya when he tried to peek in on her, and forced both Orochimaru and Kabuto to retreat, which was a nice bonus. "You wanted to see me?" she asked. Naruto nodded. "Consider this a S-class assignment, Benesato. Nothing hard or fancy. I want you to act as an escort to the Konoha envoy when they arrive." The Snake Queen frowned. "Why me? Hinata and I want eyes on Jiraiya and the others," Naruto explained. "I wouldn't put it past for Jiraiya and the others to try anything funny while they are here. Since you have faced off and beaten most of them in combat, they would be less inclined to attack you. That, and Jiraiya has a dislike of snakes, as it reminds him of his former teammate," Hinata added. Benesato thought about it for a moment. Then she nodded. "Okay, Chief, Lady Hinata. I'll take the assignment." "Where are they now?" "They are at the Red Lotus Inn," Hinata replied. "Try not to kill them." "Okay. I will take my leave," Benesato said as she turned on her heel and walked out of the council chambers. Red Lotus Inn, minutes later. The following day, the Konoha shinobi were informed that their guide had arrived. To Jiraiya's shock and horror, he saw that their tour guide was the snake lady he had met back in Tea Country. Now fully clothed, she had a somewhat amused expression at seeing Jiraiya react upon seeing her again. "Ah, it's you," Jiraiya shouted, pointing at the woman. Asuma Sarutobi recognized the woman as well, as did Kakashi Hatake. "You're the group looking for a guide around the city?" Benasato asked. "You're looking at her." She introduced herself. Major Benasato Minazuki, commander of the elite guard. She turned to Jiraiya. "So you're leading this group, you old pervert." Kiba looked at Benasato with an odd look on his face. "You smell a lot like snakes," he confirmed. Benasato turned to the feral Junin. The Konoha envoy watched as her serpent tattoo began to shift slightly. "Do you have a problem with that, dog breath?" she asked sweetly. Kiba shook his head rapidly. "No, none at all. You know Jiraiya?" Asuma asked, changing the subject. "Of course," Benasato replied. "The pervert tried to peek in on me one night while I was enjoying a late night soak in the hot springs back in Tea Country a while back." Flashback. Tea Country, several months ago. Sneaking into the women's hot springs was easy enough for Jiraiya, but he was very disappointed upon entering, as there was a single woman inside the hot springs. Jiraiya saw only her backside, but he could tell that she was very curvaceous, her skin an exotic shade of pale. He could tell that she had long dark hair, but it was slung over one shoulder. Jiraiya also noticed that from the neck down, ending at her knees, her backside and shoulders was covered in tattoos, blue clouds and lotus blossoms, and much to Jiraiya's dismay, snakes. Snakes, Jiraiya thought. Why did it have to be snakes? The woman had sensed Jiraiya's presence. "Are you lost?" she asked. "This is the women's bath." Quickly getting over his gaffe, Jiraiya responded. "Sorry," he said, playing the fool. "I seem to have lost my way, and..." Jiraiya stopped in mid-speech as she looked at the woman's body art. Was his mind playing tricks on him, or was the snake tattoos on her back moving? No, he was not going crazy. The snake tattoos are moving. The woman stood up and turned around. Jiraiya saw that she was gorgeous. Green eyes, full lips. Were it not for the fact that his life was in danger from the snake tattoos, which had now removed themselves from her body and taken a more lifelike form, he would have jumped on the woman. But Jiraiya didn't. Realization crept across his face as he recognized her from several weeks earlier from when she had defeated both Orochimaru and his lackey near the wind-fire border. "It's not very nice to try and peep in on women, you know," she said as she outstretched her hand, her snakes coiled, ready to strike, fangs dripping with venom. "It would be a shame if I took the one thing that you treasure the most, and my snake's venom is so potent that it can make your little boys impotent." The threat of being rendered infertile had the proper effect on Jiraiya. He turned and ran for his life. Once the perverted Sannin was gone, the snakes reverted back to their tattoo-like forms and settled back onto the woman's body. The woman herself began to laugh Harif, relishing in the fact that she had scared the crap out of her emperor's former godson. End flashback. Benasato's backstory earned Jiraiya a death glare from Sakura and Kaharu. Asuma and Kakashi shook their heads. After the Konohagakure envoy introduced themselves, Danzo was looking at the woman with interest. "That is a very interesting technique you have," he commented. "As it should," Benasato replied, raising her left hand, allowing the snake tattoo on her arm and forearm to come to life. The dark snake coiled around her arm, flicking its forked tongue out, and hissing at Jiraiya. The Minazuki are descended from Yamada no Orochi, or so the story goes. You can say that the Minazuki and the snake are intertwined. The snake returned to its normal position and changed back into a tattoo. About the tour of the city, Asuma prodded. "Of course," Benasato replied. "Since we are closest to the hospital, we will start there. The Empress will not be there, as she will be with her husband in a series of meetings with the council. However, Major Yamada, the lady's second-in-command and Director Uzumaki will be present." As expected, Benasato noted the reactions of the Konoha envoy when she said, "Uzumaki." Jiraiya's mood darkened, as did Asuma and Kakashi. Sakura looked angry, as did Kiba. Sasuke looked smug. Sai looked, well, like Sai. Danzu's frown deepened. Koharu and Hanmura held their tongues in check, lest they said the wrong thing and get ejected from the country, as their guide was the commander of the Emperor and Empress consort's bodyguards. Did you say, Uzumaki? Sakura repeated. Yes, Benasato confirmed. Director Karen Uzumaki. She was an understudy of the Empress consort alongside Matsuri of Suna. That shot Jiraiya and the others down. Oh, Uzumaki, you say? Danzo repeated. I thought the Uzumaki clan were wiped out in the last war back in the east. Oh, far from it, Benasato replied. The Uzumaki is one of the great imperial clans of the west. Its clan patriarch is Takuma Uzumaki. At that name, Jiraiya and Danzo visibly paled, as did Asuma Sarutobi. Takuma Uzumaki was the younger brother of Kushina Uzumaki, which made her Minato's brother-in-law, and more importantly, Naruto's uncle. He was known as the Maelstrom of Whirlpool, for his skills in Fuinjutsu and Ninjutsu, as well as his fierce temper. As Benasato led Jiraiya and the others to the hospital, the wheels in Jiraiya's head were turning. Kushina had told him once she was safe in Konoha that the Uzumaki had been decimated, that only a scant few remained following Uzushiogeku's destruction. But Kushina had been more wily than Jiraiya had given her credit for. So, Kushina, Jiraiya thought. You must have known that Whirlpool was going to fall and obviously you did not trust Konoha. But you were married to Minato, so your hands were tied. So you had Takuma and the surviving Uzumaki and Whirlpool shinobi flee the country. Never would have suspected that they would relocate here. Well played, Kushina. Well played indeed. What Jiraiya did not know was that the bodies of the Uzushiogekure shinobi that littered the ruined village were instead those of Kumo and Iwa shinobi dressed in Uzu's uniforms. Kushina had ordered her brother, the Yondaime Uzukage, to relocate the entire village to its fallback spot, located in the west. Out of sight, out of mind. But a second thought began to creep into Jiraiya's mind. If Naruto fled to the west and found out that he had family here, and if they found out from him about Konoha's betrayal. He pushed that thought out of his mind as Benasato led him and the others to the hospital. The Imperial Hospital of Kimin was bigger than that of the one in Konoha. Located in a wooded section of Kimin, the hospital consisted of two buildings, the main hospital, which was a 5-story building, and the smaller, 3-story building which housed the hospital's intensive care unit for its more serious cases. Karen Uzumaki, the director of the hospital, and Kokura Yamada, the Empress consort's number 2 in the medic program, had given the Konoha envoy a tour of the hospital. Aside from medic ninjas who worked with the shinobi, the samurai had combat medics. The medics in training got the basics of medic training from the academy, which consists of human anatomy, chakra control and studying medical texts. Upon graduation, the medics were given a 8-month training course in their respective fields. As Sakura and the others saw, the medic nins were proficient in techniques such as the chakra scalpel and the mystic palm jutsu, but they were also well versed in acupuncture and shiatsu, finger and palm pressure, stretches and other massaging techniques. The combat medics, who did not use chakra, relied on the latter. What surprised Sakura and the others were that someone of them had incorporated their various elemental releases into the medical ninjutsu. The medics, shinobi and samurai, were also highly skilled in herbology, the theory of traditional herbal therapy, something that has not been seen in the East. As the Western Empire was home to many types of medicinal herbs, such herbs in the East were very rare. When Sakura questioned as to how effective the Imperial combat medics were, Karen and Kota had taken them to an observation room, where they watched an operation in progress. The patient was a prominent merchant working for the Pakara merchant house, who was being operated on for a ruptured appendix, while Karen explained the procedure. First, they used shiatsu to dull the pain from his appendix. Then they used it to knock him out cold. Working quickly, they opened him up, removed the ruptured appendix and stitched him closed. The merchant would be in bed for 2 weeks following the operation, but would make a full recovery. The operation took less than 30 minutes. The combat medics were professional and precise. Despite the fact that the Imperial Medic Corps was far more advanced than Konoha's own program, Sakura Haruno was highly impressed, as was Danzo and the two elders. With the tour of the hospital over, Benisato had taken back her charges. Danzo then suggested that they go and check out the school for the shinobi and samurai in training. In the unified West, the training school for the rising shinobi and samurai had no official name. It was simply known as the Academy. The largest ones were in the major cities in the West: Kimen, Kurata Port, Shinzoku, South Ichiyama, and Tears Point. Located in the western part of Kimen, the academy was easily twice the size of the Shinobi Academy in Konoha, a compound unto itself, complete with dorms for orphan children who were being trained as samurai and shinobi. When Naruto and Hinata had ascended to the position of emperor and empress consort, they realized that a national system of education for the next generation of samurai and shinobi was needed. The second thing that Naruto and Hinata had done after establishing the elite guard was to organize a system of training schools for the shinobi and samurai. Unlike the Shinobi Academy in Konoha, which by their time had been watered down, and in most cases lacked the necessary funding as the civilian council had stole a sizable portion of the academy's funding, the emperor and empress consort, with the full backing of the imperial council, made sure that the academy was a top-notch school, the faculty being only Junin and Saisebushi veterans who had fought in the unification wars. The academy had two headmasters, one samurai, the other a shinobi. The shinobi headmistress was Azumi Kato, a Junin-level shinobi, while the samurai headmaster was a Saisebushi named Ryahaku Kojima. The pair had already been notified of the visit and was asked by Naruto and Hinata to give them a tour of the facility. The academy's students were taught not only the basics, such as geography, reading, writing, arithmetic and science, but also taught basic hand-to-hand combat for both shinobi and samurai. As Jiraiya and the three elders found out, not only did the shinobi and samurai in training attended the same classes, but that the samurai can also use chakra to reinforce their weapons to make them even more stronger. As the students entered in their final 2 years in the academy, they began to take specialized classes in regards to their fields. For those who showed interest in pursuing a medical career, they would begin taking classes in basic and advanced medicine. Upon graduation, aside from being assigned to their cells, the rising medic nins and combat medics would spend 2 days out of the week at the hospital. For those who specialized in tracking and spying, they had sensor class for the shinobi, and recon class for the samurai. Physical education was also top priority, as Jiraiya and the others saw various classes in chakra control, physical strength training and endurance training. As Headmaster Kojima and Headmistress Kato said, the training is brutal, yes, but it makes them tough. And the assignments? Simply put, an S-rank mission to Konoha is like a C rank to the Imperial Shinobi and Samurai. Jiraiya and Danzo wanted to see more, but Benisato refused, citing national security issues. In short, the Academy's training methods were far superior to those of Konoha's own, as much as the elders and Jiraiya hated to admit, as the Empire's methods cranked out battle-worthy shinobi and samurai in half the time Konoha could. Even worse, a mid-level Imperial shinobi and samurai could easily thrash 5 of Konoha's Junin. So the young shinobi and samurai in training take classes together? Kaharu asked as they were leaving the academy. Yes, Benisato replied. As the Imperial Defense Forces are both shinobi and samurai, they train together and fight together. The Emperor and Empress believe that a warrior's strength, whether they are a shinobi or a samurai, comes from the warrior who is fighting by his side. Something that Sanshi has taught them both. Show respect and honor to those who fight by your side, and it will be returned 100-fold. Sanshi. Danzo repeated. He had heard the name before when he was younger. He is the Minister of Defense, and the only samurai to ever reach the rank of Kodenbushi, the legendary samurai, Benisato explained. Similar to that of Konoha's legendary Sannin. This, Jiraiya knew, as he, Tsunade and Orochimaru had faced the wily samurai in a 3-on-1 battle and lost shortly after their confrontation with Hanzo the Salamander. On top of that, Sanshi had also defeated Hiruzen Sarutobi, a man known to Konoha as the Professor and the God of Shinobi, and fought General Mifune to a draw. The samurai have a ranking system which is similar to the shinobi, the Snake Queen continued. Aonisebushi is the equivalent of Genin. Chukanbushi is the equivalent of Chunin. And Saisebushi is the equivalent of Junin. Only a Saisebushi can take on apprentices, or even a cell of Aonisebushi. At that moment, Sasuke decided to speak. A shinobi will always be stronger than a samurai. Benisato stopped and turned around. Know this, she replied curtly. I've fought with the samurai. They are just as tough as battle-hardened Junin. In some cases, a samurai can be better suited for a mission rather than a shinobi, and vice versa. The emperor himself is trained in both the ways of the shinobi and the samurai, a fact that you yourself can attest to that painfully. Sasuke growled. Benisato had him there. For all his talk about being an elite, the emperor was clearly stronger than him. Seeing the Uchiha was properly humbled for the time being, Benisato continued with the tour. Since today is Friday, you guys are in for a treat, Benisato said. Even though we are at peace, the emperor and empress consort wants our forces to be razor sharp. Every Friday, we hold local tournaments here in Kimin and in other parts of the empire. We're on our way to the proving grounds now to have a look. You guys hold local tournaments? Kiba asked, now interested. Benisato nodded. Yes. It provides free entertainment for the civilians, and it also promotes healthy rivalries between samurai and shinobi. There's also the Imperial Kumite, which is held in South Ichiyama every first week in July. Only the best of the best compete in the Imperial Kumite. Interesting, Sasuke thought as he and the others followed Benisato. The proving grounds were Kimin's answer to Konoha's training grounds used by their shinobi to hone in their skills. Located on the outskirts of the imperial capital, the proving grounds was 3 times the size of training ground number 44, the Forest of Death. The proving grounds was split into 4 sections. Ground number 1 was the Enlightenment Grounds, in which samurai and shinobi meditated in peace with the help of the shinobi monks who maintained the grounds. Ground number 2 was the Weapons Grounds, where shinobi and samurai spar using their various weapons. Ground number 3 was the Jutsu Grounds, where the shinobi practiced their techniques. Of course, Sasuke tried to use the Sharingan to steal the jutsu, but found that upon activating his dojutsu, it would automatically cut off. He tried again, but with the same results. Kakashi, and unknown to both the last Uchiha and Hatake, Danzo tried to do the same with his own hidden Sharingan, but with the same results as did the Uchiha and his former sensei. Last, was ground number 3, which was simply known as the arena. Located in the heart of the proving grounds, the arena was one large area which was clear of trees. The arena was closed off on 3 sides, with a series of stands on the 3 sides. A lodge which served as a medical station was located beside the stands on the left-hand side. To the Konoha group, it reminded them of the Chunin exam stadium in a way. A massive letdai, a circular training platform, was placed in the middle of the arena. An inscription was written around the letdai's edge: "Woe not fear the grave." As the stands were already full of spectators and competitors, Benisato and the Konoha group simply stood to the side and watched as the matches commenced. As the tournament continued, Asuma and Kakashi had to admit that the Western shinobi and samurai were incredibly tough, even tougher than their counterparts in Kumo and Iwa. Sasuke snorted as he dismissed the Western shinobi and samurai as weak and unworthy of the power they wielded. Koharu and Hanmura were literally drooling, salivating as the gears in their heads had went into overdrive as they continued to watch the tournaments. It was true that the West had the muscle, but Konoha, in their eyes, had the political advantage. Even though his face said otherwise, Danzo was making plans. Plans which involve using the Empire's shinobi as fresh recruits for his route Anbu. But 2 of the combatants had caught Jiraiya and the others' attention once they stepped onto the letdai. Rock Lee and Neji Hyuga. Benisato watched as Takeshi Chiba stepped onto the let'ai. Interesting. A 2-on-1 match, she mused. Jiraiya turned to Benisato. Huh. The Snake Queen gestured to Takeshi, who had with a gesture of his hand, silently ordered both the Hyuga prodigy and the Goken expert to step back, allowing him to stand in between the two former Konoha shinobi. Takeshi Chiba, the elite guard's resident taijutsu master, she explained. Very dangerous. Very tough. Not as tough as me, though. So are those two, Jiraiya replied as the fight commenced. I'm sure you know that they were once Konoha shinobi until recently. Word gets around. Benisato replied as she spied Sanshi, Hiyashi Hyuga, Kota Chiba and Takuma Uzumaki seated together, talking. In fact, it's the big talk around the empire. The emperor has granted the 4 clan heads and the Junin that had came with them political asylum. Any idea as to why the emperor would do such a thing? Sakura asked. Granting them asylum and risking the ire of the leaf. Jiraiya shot Sakura a glance which told her to shut up. He then noticed Hiyashi with the other members of the council watching the fight. It's confirmed that the emperor and empress consort granted Hiyashi and the others asylum. So if they are here, could he be here as well? He thought as he continued to watch the fight between the two former Konoha shinobi and Takeshi Chiba. Despite the combined effort of Neji and Rock Lee, they were no match for Takeshi, as he brought the both of them down. Red Lotus Inn, Jiraiya's room. Following the tournament, Benisato had taken the Konoha group back to the Red Lotus and left for her own home. Jiraiya had ordered everyone to his room for a quick meeting in regards as to what they had seen that day. Jiraiya, however, was disappointed at the fact that he could not meet Murasaki Shibuku. I can honestly say that I am very impressed with the Western shinobi and samurai, Asuma said, remembering the match between Guy's former pupils and Takeshi Chiba. Benisato's teammate, the taijutsu expert, he held his own against Neji and Rock Lee. That guy would have been at home with the Fire Lord's guardian ninja. Their training methods for their shinobi and samurai are very impressive, Shino said. The most logical conclusion is that they combine classroom education and field exercises in order to produce battle-worthy shinobi. The Imperial Medic Corps methods as to how they train their medic nins. Sakura began as she was compiling a series of reports that was to be given to Tsunade once she returned to Konoha. Lady Tsunade may be one of the best medic nins in the history of the elemental nations, but not even she could come up with the things I've seen. Whoever the Empress is, as much as I hate to say it, she could surpass Tsunade in medical knowledge. Danzo remained silent, but Kaharu and Hanmura were trading notes. Danzo was troubled. The Uzumaki clan was still alive. Takuma Uzumaki was still alive. His train of thought was interrupted when he overheard Sasuke made his opinion known to his former sensei, and to everyone in the room. I'm not impressed, Hitaki. These Westerners are beneath the leaf. They are beneath me, an elite. If given the chance, I would show them all the might of the Uchiha. Sasuke, remember what I taught you in Sakura, Kakashi replied. You must look underneath the hidden meanings. You may be good, given that you trained under myself and Danzo, but not even you could face down one of the Empire's warriors. We both fought the Emperor himself and lost. The Emperor got lucky, Sasuke shot back. Without that title to back him up, he is nothing compared to me. Now Asuma was getting tired of Sasuke's shit. Sasuke. Shut up. Sasuke's head snapped to the Sarutobi clan head. What did you say, Sarutobi? I told you to shut up, Asuma snapped, rising to his feet, hands itching to reach for his trench knives. Ever since the Emperor has beaten you in combat, you could not let that go. You could not accept the fact that there is someone out there who is stronger than you. Sasuke stood up, his eyes morphing into the Magankyu. Do you have any idea who you are speaking to? He snarled, hand reaching for his Chikudo. Someone who has been nothing but trouble for Konoha, Asuma shot back. At least that demon brat of a teammate was more loyal than you ever were. Even though they will not tell you, since they worship the ground you walk on, but I will. All of this is not Uzumaki's fault, but yours. You tried to run to Orochimaru, but the Kyuubi brat stopped you, despite the fact that you shoved a Chidori into his chest. It was because of him we had trade and military alliances, and it was because of you that we lost them all. And it's because of you that 4 of our strongest clans and 200 Junin defected from the Leaf. Because of you, our place as the strongest in the elemental nations is being threatened by Suna. The only reason that Dobi won is because he had the power of the 9 tails backing him up, Sarutobi. Remember that, Sasuke reminded him. That's the pot calling the kettle black, since you had the power of Orochimaru's cursed seal, and that was not even enough for you to kill him, not to mention that my father, the Sannin, and the council had purposely stunted his growth, so who is stronger? The dead last, or the elite? Before leaving the room, Asuma left with a parting shot. We should have kept the Kyuubi brat and banished you instead. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Sasuke was seething as the Magankyu began to spin. That little, Sasuke. Stand down, Danzo ordered. Sarutobi does have a point on the matter regarding the Emperor. The Rinnegan is indeed stronger than the Sharingan, and the fact that the Emperor did not use it in the fight shows that he is indeed a powerful shinobi. This is a very dangerous game, Sasuke. Konoha's future depends on what happens tomorrow. Jiraiya stood up. I'll calm Asuma down. Everyone else go and get some sleep. We got a big day tomorrow. The following morning, Jiraiya and the Konoha group were having breakfast inside the Red Lotus restaurant. The dining area was for the most case deserted, as it was a Saturday morning. The tension between Sasuke Uchiha and Asuma Sarutobi was still thick from the previous night, which is why both men sat on opposite sides of the table. Sasuke had not remembered how Asuma had told him that his dead last of a former teammate was worth more than him, and vowed to pay the Sarutobi clan head back for that insult. Shame that his little bastard of a nephew in his cell had died, Sasuke thought darkly. I would have loved to place them under a genjutsu. The previous night, Sasuke had written off the imperial forces as weak, and unworthy to be in his presence. But it was Koharu and Hanmura who had made Sasuke think otherwise. As always, like they had done when he was a child, they stroked his ego, telling him that through this alliance, he would learn the Empire's secrets, that through the Empire, he would become even more powerful. Powerful enough to even kill Itachi and to prove to his missing teammate that he was indeed the strongest once and for all. Sasuke liked that idea. Once he killed Itachi, not only would he beat Naruto's head into powder, but he would also crush the Emperor under his might. 4 people then entered the restaurant. The locals who were present knew who they were, and were smart enough to keep out of their way. These 4 highly trained shinobi and samurai were one of the Empire's elite special forces unit, a quartet of S-ranked warriors whose bloodlines allowed them to wield the power of the elements of wind, earth, fire and lightning. This same group of fighters who had easily crushed the Akatsuki, but did not kill any of them. Only the Emperor and Empress matched them in power and skill. They were known by several names. The Shitenno. The 4 Heavenly Kings. The 4 Devas. They walked over to the table where Jiraiya and the others sat. Kiba saw them first and alerted Jiraiya and the others to their presence. The first member was a mirror image of the Pakera merchant, imperial spy Sachiko Asahina. In truth, she was her identical twin sister, the eldest by 5 minutes, save that while Sachiko had long hair, hers was cut short. Like her twin sister, she wielded the power of the flames, but while Sachiko's flames were red, hers were black. She was dressed in the standard Junin uniform of the Imperial Defense Force, the black Shozoku uniform, similar to what Hinata usually wears while working with the medics inside the hospital, over a red Junin flak vest. A ninjutsu was strapped to small of her back. Her hitai was wrapped around her neck. Her name was Sadako Asahina, the mistress of the dark flames. The second member was also female. Unlike the other 3, who were traditional shinobi, she was the product of a union between a kunoichi and a ronin samurai, which meant she was trained in both the ways of the shinobi and samurai, meaning that she was part of the samurai ninja warrior class who embraced both styles. Hailing from the town of Shinoko, she was a member of an ancient warrior cult who worshipped the deity Asura, similar to the Jashin cult Hidan is a part of, just not as bloodthirsty. She wore no flak vest with her clothing, which consisted of a black bustier, black pants and boots, think Princess Katana from the movies. Dual tantos were stuck inside her boots. Her dark hair fell behind her back. Her forehead protector was wrapped around her left leg. She looked exotic, the clear gray eyes looking down on the Konoha group with disdain. She was the protector of the divine winds, Kaide Kuriyama. The third member was a bald and bearded mountain of a man, standing 7 feet tall, literally a walking mountain of muscle. His armor reminded Jiraiya of Han's steam armor in appearance, only difference was that there was no steam. Aside from the armor, he had on a pair of black pants, but went barefoot. He was the oldest of the group, tanned, and loved a good fight. Strapped to his back was a giant broadsword the size of Zabuza's head-chopping cleaver. Like he wore his Hitai-8 around his bicep. He was Kentaro Kagami, the strongman of the scorched earth. The final member of the group was the leader. For a split second, given the blonde hair and the blue eyes, Jiraiya and the others thought that he was looking at Naruto. But this guy was anything but. He was wearing armor which reminded both Sakura and Sasuke of Dodo Kazuhana's prototype chakra armor, but it was red with golden trim rather than Dodo's black with blue trim. It wasn't chakra armor, but rather armor belonging to his clan. Over the armor, he had on a black haori. Black pants and sandals completed the outfit. His Hitai-8 was stitched onto his haori. He was Rasu, the shogun of the violent lightning. You guys stick out like a sore thumb, Rasu began. Then again, I'm not surprised. Eastern shinobi with a death wish. Welcome to the West, tourists. Danzo frowned. We are not tourists, he rebuked. Oh, come on, Rasu replied. Here you are, in our home, taking in the sights, seeing what the Western Empire have to offer. Face it, you guys are tourists. Sasuke jumped to his feet, activating his Sharingan. Now look here, you. He backed away as Rasu raised one hand, index and middle finger extended. Rasu childed as golden lightning danced on his finger. You really should rein in your temper, Uchiha. Otherwise, I would have to explain why I had to fry you to my boss. Sasuke, don't, Jiraiya warned. I've heard of these four. These four are the four devas. He looked at Rasu. This is the one who had defeated Itachi and his partner. The old man speaks the truth, Rasu confirmed. We tagged along with the chief and his wife on an inspection tour to the east. The emperor gave us his blessings to test our skills against the Akatsuki, so long as we didn't kill any of them. He looked at Sasuke. So, you're Itachi's kid brother. I've seen better. Then again, I've seen worse as well. How dare you speak to me like that, you commoner? Sasuke snarled. Keep running your mouth, runt, and I'll do to you what I did to your brother, Rasu threatened. Upon hearing Sadako clear her throat, Rasu dispersed the lightning. Oh, right. You guys are to come with us. The Emperor and Empress Consort would like to have a word with you guys. We're here just to make sure that everything remains nice and civil. And keep your dog under control, Sadako warned Kiba. Otherwise, I will be forced to put him down.